All right, welcome everyone. With it being right at 6 o'clock, let's get started. And Amanda, if you could please do a roll.
Mayor Roberts,
Here.
Councilmember Larson,
Here.
Councilmember Valento,
Here.
Councilmember Erickson,
Here.
Councilmember Miller.
Here.
Right, and if you're able, please join us in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right, Council, we have an agenda in front of us. I am going to entertain a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
The motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have an agenda. We have no awards and presentations this evening. We'll go right into open forum. This is an opportunity for any member to come of this community to come to speak to the council on any city matter. Please limit it to around 3 minutes and state your name and address for the record. I will mention that if you are here to discuss the Bittersweet or Forest View Estates issue, there is a public hearing. You're more than welcome to speak in open forum or during the public hearing. First person, Michael Anderson. It does say Forest View Estates. Again, you're more than welcome to speak now or during the public hearing.
Yes, both.
Yep, absolutely. Franco Caseman?
He wants to speak.
Oh, now you said now? Oh, I'm sorry. Both. You want to speak to both? Go
Yes.
ahead. Good.
So I was here for the zoning when they were trying to get the okay to get the larger roundabout or larger cul-de-sac for the thing. They're putting in with 24 houses in an area that already has 24 houses in that back area. The thing is, you can look at where they're going, where the people are gonna travel is not Henna or Hayward or wherever that road was. It's 233rd, 231st, right in front of my house. I've sat there and tried to get people to slow down. I've tried to talk to the PD for years about having people out there watching people. I don't want one of my kids or one of the hundreds of kids around there hit in the road. Why are we putting more houses in there? And on top of that, they're putting in $750,000 to $1 million houses. They're gonna raise our property values and taxes in all of our houses. You're gonna price us out. If you want us to leave, let us know. I'll start packing my bags and leave. I mean, it's simple. We don't want those houses back there. They've tried 2 times already. They were shut down 2 times already. Build the infrastructure to where they can go to 235th and get out that way instead of going through our neighborhood. I just don't understand what I know, pizza pub conversations with the builder is probably got way more weight than anything everybody else already says. But I just don't want that. I'm not afraid of if someone hits a kid there, it's when. Because they drive like nuts over there. They said, oh, we can't put speed bumps there because of the plows. Put temporary ones up. put speed limit signs up, put something up. Don't just have it as a free-for-all for every FedEx driver. UPS isn't that bad, FedEx is really bad. All those Amazon drivers. And you're doubling the amount of people in going through those streets. Doubling it. If they, why is it 3 times? Why is it the 3rd time? Why was it shut down the first 2 times? Look back at that. That's it.
Thank you. Franco Caseman.
Hi, everybody. My name is Franco Glassman. I live at 8051 230th Street North, which is directly across the street from Coolant Camp Park. I'm here to talk about that potential tower going in there. I know the mayor was at the meeting with Tower Company. I'm sure he agrees. Everybody at the meeting felt the same way. We do not want a tower to go in there. The park is used by so many people. It's a great park. I don't think you're going to do anybody a service by adding that tower there. There are other options, whether it be another location for the tower or the company AT&T piggybacking on some of the towers that exist already. I don't feel that Coolant Camp Park is a good place for this particular thing. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item, next person, Jackie Robinson. And again, you're more than welcome to speak now or at the public hearing.
Get it over with. Jackie Robinson, 23095 Hilo Court North. And I'm here to talk about the Bittersweet development. And Brad Jacobson sent you a wonderful letter and was talking about the impact that will substantially negatively affect the essential quality of life we now enjoy in our homes in Forest Lake. I've only been here a year and maybe a quarter. I'm a teacher educator of 30-some years and dedicated a lot of my service to children and families. So I feel like I'm an advocate in that respect. And I love our neighborhood. It makes me smile when I drive down the streets. I see mothers with their babies. The other day I saw twins in a little stroller. I see kids on their bicycles, moms and dads playing soccer, playing catch. Just all kinds of family things going on. And I just smile. It makes me happy to see that. But then I think about the safety issue of this new development. And I think, you know, we don't have any trails on our streets. We don't have any sidewalks. So we use our streets if we want to walk, if we want to bike, if we want to scooter. You know, and people are pretty careful in our neighborhood. But to increase all that traffic, we're looking at a big safety issue. You know, there's really little kids too. I saw a little toddler like running out. He was very close to the street and mom caught him. You know, but I think about, are we an accident waiting to happen with all the delivery trucks that, yeah, some of them drive pretty fast. You know, when you say 40 to 60 more cars, well, I have my daughter living with us with our family while my grandson is a driver now. So we're going to be a 4-car family. So maybe you quadruple that number. It's not just a single family. You've got other teens and kids. So it's a lot of traffic. So I'm asking you to think about the safety of families and children, maybe over your tax revenue or whatever you would be for it, that it will change our quality of life. And I don't know, you know, it's not like they play out in the street. Like they don't play out in the street game wise, but they do need an area to ride their bikes. They do need an area to use a scooter. So I'm hoping that you would choose families and children. Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa Fallon. Okay. Eric Youngquist. Youngner, sorry.
Eric Youngner, 23110 Itasca Avenue North, Forest Lake. Here to talk about the Coolant Camp Park cell tower. I'm not gonna make it long. You guys have read our emails. Everybody knows where we stand. It's a terrible idea. I mean, there's other options. There's plenty of other options, and just briefly some statistics that peer-reviewed study, 94% of homebuyers say they're less interested in purchasing a property near a cell tower. 80% say they'd never buy or rent within a few blocks of one. It stands to lower our property values. I mean, anywhere from 10 to 20%. Some studies say lower, but this type of situation, you know, larger properties, more upscale homes, in direct view of a cell tower, it absolutely tanks the value, makes it really, really hard to sell. Anything the city stands to gain by the $1,500 a month or whatever it's gonna be rent for the cell tower will never come anywhere close to the equity damage that the cell tower will cause. So a million other things I can talk about. It's just a bad idea. So let's not, please. Thank you.
Thank you. David Gay.
David Gay, 22760 Ideal Avenue North, Forest Lake. Like the previous speaker said, that it isn't a very good place to put a tower because of, I said, the park, the DNR control of the park and the wildlife that's there. And I'd just like to say that I oppose that location for the cell tower. Thank you.
Thank you. Carl and Jean Schmel. Okay. Beverly Peterson. Oh, okay. Amanda Kurtz.
Hello, I'm Amanda Kurz, 7985 230th Street Lane North in Forest Lake. I live in the Coulenkamp Park neighborhood, and on April 30th, my neighbors and I attended the meeting with TowerCo regarding the construction of the tower at Coulenkamp Park. The meeting was packed, and there was an informal vote. Every neighbor in attendance that night was in opposition of the project, with the main reasons being health concerns from the radiation, the tower being next to the playground and the youth baseball fields, and a decrease to property value. TowerCo did listen to our concerns, and they also showed us a map of dropped AT&T FirstNet calls in the area. However, the representative was not able to tell us anything about the data, like when it was collected or how long the data was collected for. Was it 6 months? Was it a year? Was it 5 years? He had no answers to these questions. If you drive up and down 35, you will see these communication towers along the highway. Many are near buildings and not in beautiful parks. Coulenkamp is a wonderful park with 4 youth baseball fields, a playground, and nature trails that wind through the woods and along the wetlands. If you haven't been to Coulenkamp, I would strongly suggest that you go there between the hours of 6 and 7 on a weeknight to understand how many residents use this park, especially kids. I would also encourage you to walk the beautiful nature trails to see some of the wildlife, or have a picnic under one of the 2 pavilions and listen to the sounds of nature. It is so peaceful, and in my opinion, it's one of the best parks in Forest Lake. I am hopeful that the input from our neighborhood provided TowerCo, that we provided to TowerCo, makes them reconsider building the communication tower at Coulenkamp. However, if they decide to move forward with the tower at Coulenkamp, I kindly ask that you not approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin McCormick. Okay. Sheila who?
Good evening. Hi, I'm Sheila Haru, 7946 230th Street Lane North in Forest Lake, along with all of my neighbors here who are wanting to express our concerns about the Coulenkamp Park Cell Tower. I just want to add my voice to that and want to thank you all for responding to my emails. Those of you that I heard from, thank you very much. And just agree with my neighbors. We don't want the cell tower. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mike Satchel.
Good evening, Mike Stachel, 22919 Imperial Avenue North, Forest Lake, Minnesota. And I have a copy of our petition that we brought forward before. I can give it to somebody here in case you didn't receive it. Just following up on the cooling camp, and really, like previously said, I appreciate the response from the correspondence that I sent, and I just want you to consider the original intent of that park was for the public. And I know it's been many years, but I've lived out there for 20+ years, and I would say the use of that park has increased significantly, especially with the improvements of the ball fields. So it's really an asset to the public, and it should stay that way. Thanks.
They did get a copy. Thank you.
Brad Jacobson,
I'll wait till the agenda.
Okay. Jay Jensen,
Can
Jenin, sorry.
I speak briefly both?
But yeah, if you want to speak now and or,
Yeah, and I did a monkey see, monkey do, I put Forest View, I meant Bittersweet.
okay, yeah.
But one thing I wanted to comment since, this is.
Just state your name and
Oh,
address.
Jay Jenin,
Yeah.
23033 Henna Avenue North. And I just wanted to say, on this part of it, that I went to the cooling camp this weekend. My kids are back from college, and some of them told me, hey, they're gonna build a tower here. And I was, where? Because I was playing Frisbee there, and there's the baseball fields, and there's, just everything there. So if you do build something there, yeah, that's a big if, it sounds like, but if you do, please don't put it somewhere where it's gonna like break up the whole park and just make it feel like a complex instead of a park. So, thank you.
Holly, Linging y'all.
Hi, I'm Holly Hiley Gall, and I live at 7972 230th North Drive. Anyway, Lane Drive. So we're new here. My husband and I moved here about 4 years ago. We came from an urban area in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. And there were towers everywhere, and it wasn't what we wanted. We came here specifically because we wanted to be in a rural area. So I'll read to you. I wrote to you guys. I don't know. I don't think I had everybody's email, but I'll write to you. I'll read it to you in case you didn't get this, so that you get a gist of what we feel about it. Forest Lake near Cooling Camp is an extraordinarily beautiful area that is separated by a small downtown distance that is surrounded by protected wetlands, spacious land parcels, and near Cooling Camp Park. Buried electrical lines, allowing visually beautiful landscapes and residential water wells and more. It's an originally planned rural community. It includes a neighborhood compact that sets rules and guidelines to preserve many of these features, yet is only about 45 minutes away to the city to access concerts, plays, musicals, and all the cultural aspects of the arts in the cities that we appreciate. We moved here 4 years ago, expecting that that's where we would prefer to live. Lots of wildlife that survives in the protected marshes and lakes and such live on our property. This is how our property was sold to us, and we felt really lucky to find it in its well cared for condition. Neighbors love their homes and their lifestyle it offers. If someone has ever had any difficulty with wireless connection, it's usually due to their subscription being a secondary wireless company, which is cheaper, as opposed to the 3 major providers, which are more expensive. The connectivity should be an expense that the consumer pays for and not the neighborhood. The cost of adding a 100-foot monopole for more wireless is a waste on us. We're happy without it. We set up our wireless and our connections and are more than fine. Our public services, police, fire, and ambulance have worked very well for us, and we've been sharing our experiences, and this is our findings. Please find a different place for your new wireless access that's more appropriate. The one that's been proposed is ugly and disrupts the rural natural beauty of our community and interferes with the activities in the park, being only a few hundred feet from a popular playground and 4 baseball diamonds that host many Little League games. No, we don't want lights on the baseball diamonds. Homes directly across the street or right next door would be completely disrupted by them. There are places near stores downtown or on a local industrial property that won't interfere with our lovely community. Please do not allow the monopole structure to be built in Coolan Park. We don't want it and we don't need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Looks like there's a representative here from Forest Lake Hockey Association that is only going to speak if there's questions come up. That's part of the consent agenda unless someone or council pulls it from the consent agenda. We probably will not be discussing that this evening. Let's see, Maria Bloomberg.
I'm going to speak about the tower right now. We have both. We're in the neighborhood for both. So I'm Maria Bloomberg from 7610 231st Street North. And regarding the tower, I did a lot of digging, and I believe you've received this information, but I found that in 1978, under the township, Coolan Park received a Land and Water Conservation Fund grant. So there are some very strict rules that limit what can be done in land that receives the funding. And there are prohibited uses. And specifically, building a cell tower on land protected by the Land and Water Conservation Fund, such as Coolan is generally not allowed because it violates federal and state protection for public outdoor recreation. It is a strict non-recreation restriction under Section 6F of the Lawcon Act that any land receiving this funding must be exclusively used for public outdoor recreation in perpetuity. So if this law applies, Forest Lake does have options for finding like for like land and going through the process of getting approval from the state. In this case, it would just be state and the DNR, because I did speak with someone from the DNR who found the grant information. So it would be, she said it's very difficult, but she said anyone can reach out to her for specifics. So I think that it's probably because of that grant, it's hopefully just a non-issue and the tower will be located elsewhere.
Thank you. Chad Bloomberg. Tim Sari. Jennifer Starkey. All right. Okay, that is the end of those who signed up. Anyone else would like to speak to in front of the council on any given city matter? All right, see no one else. We'll move on to our next agenda item. And that is the consent agenda. Council, I'm willing to entertain a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve consent agenda items A through I.
Motion.
I'll second the motion.
Motion is second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And we have our consent agenda passed. All right, on to the regular items. The first one is Forest View Estates. I'll just, for the public, staff will go through the explanation of this project. Council will have some time to speak to it. We will open up for the public hearing and then bring it back to council for consideration. And Abby.
Thank you, Mayor Roberts, members of the council. Can you hear me all right? A little closer. There we go. Tonight before you is the consideration of the preliminary plat and an associated variance for Forest View Estates. Hopefully you all took a look at your packet beforehand, which briefed you on the application consideration. Tonight, the biggest consideration for you is the appeal to the Planning Commission's denial of a 600-foot cul-de-sac length variance. If the council upholds that Planning Commission decision, then the council would not be able to approve the associated preliminary plat. However, if the council makes findings in contrast with the Planning Commission, then they can move forward with the plat appeal. So I'm going to actually run through the variance proceedings and probably stop for us to discuss that, or for the council to discuss that, so that we don't kind of go through all the preliminary plat items as well, maybe just in the sake of time. I hear there's a hockey game tonight. So tonight, the council's role is the consideration of an appeal to the Planning Commission's denial of a cul-de-sac variance. The council is making your own decision based on the record and the city code. This is underneath the subdivision code of 153.035 and not a zoning variance. So the variance would be decided first and then the preliminary plat. So just a little bit about the proposal, the site context, and the history. The development is proposing 20 single-family lots on 15.85 acre site east of Hilo Avenue. Other than the cul-de-sac length, the development meets the zoning standards. The variance is only for that 600-foot cul-de-sac length. The site had been planned as a future residential phase since the Bittersweet development. And up on your screen tonight shows the 3 phases of Bittersweet. Originally with a concept showing all 3 phases, but then those plats coming back starting in the early 1980s or late 1980s. A similar over-length cul-de-sac issue existed in the 1993 proposal that was denied by Forest Lake Township. The current proposal is reduced from earlier concepts, but it does propose right off the sub-street where essentially Bittersweet 2 had kind of left off, moving into the east. So I will just note that this isn't a newly invented development. This was kind of a 3rd phase, and you might remember seeing the concept plan because all concept plans do go to the Planning Commission, Parks, and the City Council. And at that time, had heard of the third phase. This just shows that original plat number 2 with then that plat 3 being proposed. This has been vetted a few different times by the city, as previously noted. City staff has looked at it more recently as well. I did want to at least note kind of historically, with the exception of 1960, every decade has had at least one cul-de-sac variance length since the 1950s. This isn't necessarily an uncommon request in urban development. While most of them are on average 1/4 to 1/2 of a mile, some are much longer. And our newer developments, so just within the last maybe 10, 15 years, Hawthorne Heights, Chestnut Creek, and Hidden Creek all have had a cul-de-sac exceeding that 600-foot length. Many of those with homes greater than 50 lots, one of them even up to 110 lots. I only bring this up just because I think that there's been question in the community about what if the other variances have been. I haven't gone back through all those file records to know if variances were asked at the time or if they were just discussed as part of the plat process. So some of the site constraints and the access limitations is that the proposed length is about 20, just under a half mile, 2,600 feet. The variance would be for just over 2,000 feet. That existing access is through 231st Street North, Henna Avenue. So where we're measuring, oh, I got to get my pen on just really quick. Little pointer here. Where we're actually measuring that cul-de-sac length comes all the way back to this point here, because that's the point, the first point where we have 2 outs. Then we're looking at the existing cul-de-sac that's there, and then again, this proposal. It should be noted that if the road even went through at Hilo extended through, if this development never goes through, this would still require a variance to the cul-de-sac length. As I noted, there was a future stub street for that future connectivity into the site. At the Planning Commission, there was discussion about a potential southerly access point, an alternative route through Cooling Camp. But I will say you can see that you do have those wetlands and the wetland buffer constraints, as well as topography that will be getting back down through the south a challenge. Staff has not assessed this for conformity with the city standard, but just topography, wetland, and wetland buffers, we don't actually believe that's alternative or a secondary means of egress. The variance criteria found in the subdivision code needs, you need to make the findings, you can only grant a variance if all of the findings exist, that there's special circumstances or highly unique conditions affecting the property. The granting of the variance would not be detrimental to public health, safety, and welfare. The granting of the variance will not increase flood hazard or flood damage potential. The variance results from a physical hardship, generally topography. The hardship is not a result of an action or actions by the owner, applicant, or any agent. And then the granting of the variance will not allow a use that's otherwise permitted in the zoning code. So when it comes down to the subdivision criteria, this is where the record differs. So the city council or the planning commission and staff had different findings, which led to staff's recommendation of approval, but the planning commission's denial. There was agreement between staff and the planning commission that there wouldn't be an increase in flood hazard and that single family is a permitted use of the property. But the main areas of disagreement were whether or not there was unique circumstances. The planning commission indicated that the conditions were reasonably known at the time, where staff would say that this has been a three-phase development that has been historically planned for quite a long time. At narrow, long third phase and no out on the eastern and southerly end has been a condition that's existed. The question of whether there's reasonable use, both parties do acknowledge that single-family residential use. This property is not only guided for single-family, but it is in the 2030 comprehensive plan in the MUSA, the urban service area, for single-family development in this decade. And so, well, yes, the property owner could still use the property for single-family use. We do believe that it's reasonable to request development as part of the consistency with the comprehensive plan. Whether or not there's a hardship that was created by the owner or applicant, it's the Muskie family name has been associated with the property for a long time, but the current landowner or the current applicant, this wasn't something he created necessarily. This is a development plan that he's been looking to execute as part of that three-phase development. And then whether the long cul-de-sac creates a public safety concern. That acknowledgement of the one-way in, one-way out, and just traffic on the existing neighborhood was concerned to the Planning Commission. However, as noted in the staff report, staff did consult with emergency service staff who had indicated they did not see that there'd be a public safety concern by the adding of these 20 homes on the cul-de-sac. So the hard part is you must decide which of those findings are the best and supported by the record. So your options tonight are the first option is to affirm the Planning Commission's denial. So you would deny the appeal, affirming Planning Commission Resolution 042-22-2601, and then deny the preliminary plat. Your other option is to reverse the Planning Commission's denial and approve the variance appeal, making those findings that all of those 6 criteria we talked about in 152.035 are being met. And then you can take action on that preliminary plat. I'm going to stop here because I don't necessarily know that we should go through preliminary plat until maybe the council's taken action on this. However, it is a public hearing, so it's up to you if you want to take that testimony now or you want me to go through the whole thing. I guess I should have didn't think about that.
No, I like that recommendation. At this point, council, any questions for staff?
No questions right now.
All right, I'm available if you need me to. And the applicant is here and their representative if you have any questions of them as well.
I think let's go through we'll do the public hearing and then we can hear from the applicant afterwards. So with that said, at 6:33, we'll be opening this evening's public hearing on the Forest View Estates. Please come to the podium, state your name and address, limit it to about 3 minutes, and speak to this issue. I won't, anyone that's already been on here, I didn't note who was going to come back up, so just come, first serve.
Why not? Again, Jay Jenin, 23033 Hannah Avenue North. And now I realize why I got confused whether it's Bittersweet or Forest View, is that what it is? Because they changed the name because we've tried it 4 times already. Which brings me up to, and by the way, I feel sorry for you. You have to figure out how to grow things in the city, but you have all these conflicting interests, and I know that's not fun as an engineer myself. So I guess one of the things that rubbed me the wrong way at the planning commission was when the applicant said, you know, part of the problem here is that too many people have been around too long. I think that's what I heard. I might have misheard a little bit, but it's, yeah, you heard it too. Okay, so I think that, I don't know what to take that because I haven't been here since, I've been here since 2004, not 97, so I missed all those, but all I can say is maybe I wouldn't have known what was going on. For instance, the false premise that this was always part of a plan, the original plan, we talked about that at the commission. There was a plan to have a road around. That was deemed at the time not doable. The people they knew wouldn't sell. Just like in this revised plan, I'm told there's going to be a stub to connect to the future developments, which I've already been told that none of the farmers around there and definitely not the DNR is going to sell the land for that. So, but none of that's really here nor there. It's really how does this affect, answering your 7 questions, is it? First one is obviously this is not this is definitely something that they're taking on themselves. They're buying a property that's already been denied 4 times. And not just because the stub is long. It's like, I think it was like 3.5 times as much as normal. But what does that really mean for me? I have 5 kids. 2 of them came back from college, but I have a few that have a few years left. Somebody mentioned something about basketball. My kids love to go out on the street. They love to go play with their friends. There's a whole block of people. And what I find is people on our block generally go pretty slow. People in the next block down, they go a little faster because I don't know. I think they want to get to the house same time as the people on my block. But that's understandable. But now we're talking about doubling the people. We're talking about trucks for, I don't know, 3-4 years, however long it takes to build this. Maybe it'll be faster. But my youngest is 9 years old. The only thing he's going to remember if we go with this is that there's trucks that are going down, building a new construction that don't meet city code. And we decided, you know what? We wanted a few more houses here because we wanted to sell $15 to $20 million worth of houses. Okay. And so we're willing to break the code or the ordinance. We're willing to break the law and say, yeah, that's okay. Other people did it. Let's do it too. So I really, really appreciate if we could follow our ordinances that we've passed. I mean, you did a lot of work to plan this, so things are done accurately, safely, fairly, not so somebody can say, well, maybe there's enough people that left. Maybe I can get it passed this time. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Melissa Felland. I live at 23130 Hilo Avenue North, and I'm here to speak on behalf of my husband and myself. My email that I sent to the Planning Commission is part of the online documentation that you should have received for tonight's meeting. And I did email each of you with 2 attachments last Wednesday. Not sure you got them. I received no acknowledgement. But I wanted to draw your attention to the petition that was also submitted and is in tonight's record online for you to see. That represents knocking on at least 40 houses' doors. We did 60 houses for the Planning Commission the first time around. And then we went back and we updated people. And that represents 40 houses. Plus there's another petition by another community member who also received signage on that. I am here tonight to really reiterate the health and safety issues that have been mentioned in the reports to date and by other people. But I just want to be really clear about this. This development is an addition to an already established neighborhood. And people moved into that neighborhood years ago. We're 30+ year members of that neighborhood. We've raised our kids there, and now we're watching the next generation be raised there. And I really want to identify that, or to encourage you to think about that the health and safety issues might really be defined a bit differently than only the professionals that have been mentioned that are city employed. I love the police department.
but they might have a different perspective on some of the health and safety issues as the residents do, as well as fire safety. Let me identify that when you tonight are looking at variances, I believe the city code says in its introduction in section A of 152.035, that section A says, and this is the second sentence, in granting its approval, the city council shall take into account the nature of the proposed use of the land and the existing use of land in the vicinity, the number of persons who will reside or work in the proposed subdivision, and the probable effect of the proposed subdivision on traffic conditions in the vicinity. Hardship relating to economic difficulty shall not be considered for the purpose of granting a variance, and a variance shall only be approved when the city finds that each and every one of the following apply. I want to draw your attention to the probable effect on the traffic conditions. An over-length cul-de-sac of 2,600 feet, starting up on Henna, going down 31st to 31st to Hilo, and then into a proposed development, is 2,600 feet. The road's already an overlength without that added onto it. The health and safety concerns would definitely affect snow plowing and removal. We already have that issue. Fire department access and response, water access, fire truck turnaround, EMS access and response. I visited with a cardiac nurse right around the corner from me on 231st. And she said an overlength cul-de-sac could affect the EMS response. And as a cardiac nurse, every second counts. I'm a cardiac patient. I rely on a pacemaker and a defibrillator to live. I take her input very seriously. Law enforcement and SWAT access, response and evacuations. In my email to the Planning Commission originally, and in my email to each one of you, I outlined a situation where we had an armed intruder or an armed standoff with an individual who had a mental health issue one day in our neighborhood. If we had another in and out road, I wouldn't have had to stay in my house for a couple of hours with my kids and wonder, is their neighbor going to be shot today? Thankfully, he wasn't shot, but he didn't survive that day. And I urge you to think about this. This is the residents who have to live in the neighborhood and deal with these sorts of issues. Mike has already talked about traffic. We have an increase in traffic on our dead end road. People don't see the no outlet sign up on top of the street signs. They don't see it. They drive down. And you know what happens when they get to the end of the road and they realize it's a dead end? They fly around and they beat it out of the neighborhood faster than they came in. Happens all the time. And so I urge you to think about that. We have no signage noting speed limit in the neighborhood, and we have no large print big signs saying no outlet. It's an issue already without having another additional cul-de-sac. We have lots of walkers. Jackie talked about moms out with kids. We see a lot of people with strollers, a lot of dog walkers. Our family's included in that. And there are lots of kids that ride bikes and scooters in our existing neighborhood. This isn't a new development. You're adding on to an already existing place. And a lot of people that I visited with when I knocked on doors, they said, you know what I really like? That I can go out after supper for a walk. And you see neighbors, you visit. I have a lot of flower gardens in my yard. People comment on them. And it's just building community. You add 20 more houses and the traffic that comes with that. We have one house in our street that receives at least 3 deliveries a day. That doesn't count Uber Eats and grocery delivery. That's one house. Add 20 more on, that's going to increase big time. You know, and you are aware, and Abby just shared some of that information in the intro, that there are 4 of the 6 criteria to meet the criteria for exceptional undue hardship for this variance. 4 of the 6 were found by the Planning Commission to not have been met. People have spoken to that. I'm sure there will be more speaking tonight about that. There's a narrative in the May 11th report going through each one of those items as well. And I think I understand clearly that a variance shall only be approved when the city council finds that each and every one of the following 6 criteria apply. And the 4 that are in question that the Planning Commission found did not meet a variance requirement for to meet a variance are sections A1, special circumstances and reasonable use, A2, public health and safety and welfare, A4, physical hardship, and A5, self-created hardship. Suggestions and ideas to the owner and the developer to address those 4 items were included in the Planning Commission documentation and are in the online materials for today's meeting. Mr. Muskie and Jaron Johnson, when they met with us to provide an informational session on March 25th, told us at the table that building another in and out road, quote, simply can't be done, end quote. He then said we, the residents in the area, could buy the Vic property at the end of Hilo Avenue North and build a road to 235th in order to have another in-out road if we wanted another road. Statements made like of these do not help to meet the criteria for a variance. They don't build neighborliness, and they aren't even getting close for the owner and the representative of the developer to meet the city's engineering standards and to secure a preliminary plat approval. I really appreciate the Planning Committee's time and effort at the April 8th meeting to focus on the engineering standards and especially for cul-de-sac length and the zoning requirements when deciding on a variance. In this specific situation, it's especially appreciated since the issue of identifying and actually creating another road into and out of the development has been a health and safety issue for 30+ years for this phase of the proposed development. This isn't new. Nothing has changed in this proposal except for the number of houses. Folks, I really urge you to listen to and respect the expertise, the time, and the attention of the Planning Commission, the residents that have signed the petitions, shared their concerns, submitted written concerns and feedback, and have attended tonight's meeting. Please uphold the Planning Commission's denial of the variance for the cul-de-sac length and also the denial for the preliminary plat approval for the proposed Forest View Estates. This is Council Option 1 that was just highlighted in the PowerPoint in the staff report. Thank you.
Next. Anyone else like to speak tonight?
Maria Bloomberg, 7610 231st Street North. So there's a couple things. Abby talked about the builder wanting to purchase the land from the landowner who was under the who's under these constraints. But Minnesota law says it does not let them bypass zoning rules. The city still applies the same legal tests and standards to the variance request. So I know that Mr. Johnson could argue that he's using land that has these restrictions, but they're not separate from the landowner. I also feel that the 600-foot variance statement is misleading, and I'll get to that in a second. I'm just going to read what I wrote because otherwise I'll go all over. I am here to express my firm support for the Planning Commission's recent decision regarding Bittersweet 3, which has been renamed Forest View Estates. On April 8th, 2026, the Planning Commission voted unanimously 6-0 to deny the request for an additional 1,200-foot cul-de-sac variance. So I was kind of surprised when I learned that there was a appeal because this 1,200-foot cul-de-sac, the cul-de-sac already has a variance of 1,800 feet. And does anyone know what the longest cul-de-sac in Minnesota is? It is Afton, Minnesota. They allow for some of the longest cul-de-sacs in the region, and their standard maximum length is about 1,320 feet, which is about a quarter of a mile. This cul-de-sac variance would put our longest cul-de-sac at 3,000 feet. So I don't know if we get a gold medal for that or what, but that's pretty long. It's not a minor adjustment. It's a total disregard for the safety-based regulations that govern our community. And I believe any layperson could see this. As was stated, the city council must consider the 6 specific legal criteria when making their decisions. And the first one is, are there special circumstances or highly unique conditions affecting the property? Which the staff recommendation is there are special circumstances. The Planning Commission said there are not. The circumstance lends itself to the consideration of legal access versus development rights. And the landowner does have the right to access his land. It does not deny owner the use of their property, but how they will use it is what matters. It could be sold and one home could be put up on it, and they could have lots of acreage to watch the deer and the wild animals that go through. But developmental limitations, and while a court in theory could force a simple driveway to allow access to that land, a city cannot be forced to grant a variance for a major residential development. If the variance is denied today, which I hope it will be, the owner is simply restricted to use the land for something else that requires less intensive road access, such as a single home, agriculture, or other uses. As was mentioned, he's owned the property for over 5 decades. And his variance requests have been denied over and over and over. The landowner, Mike Muskie, on April 29th of 1997 stated, and this is in meeting minutes, "It would not be worthwhile to build a small amount of homes in the area, and we will wait for the Winbergs to sell property for Ideal Avenue." That has not happened since 1997, and it's not scheduled to happen now. He also stated, "It does not make financial sense to develop only the first 800 feet within a dead end." He also said, "Roger Vick is in no hurry to extend Hilo Avenue on this property. It wouldn't pay to install Hilo Avenue just to build 10 homes." I'm a little confused on this because I tried to find this, but apparently at some point there must have been something approved for up to 10 homes, because it was when board member Cheetah was on the board. And he said that the board has not prohibited Muskie Group from developing its property. It would allow for 8 to 10 homes. But Mike Muskie responded, "It would not be worthwhile to build a small amount of homes in the area. And again, we would wait for the Winbergs to sell property." So the landowner declined at that point. The hardship, which you will have to address, was self-created. It is not due to the land, but to the landowner's repeated decisions and delays to build. These decisions are documented publicly. And under city code, self-created hardship does not justify a variance. To grant an extreme variance of 3,000 feet to resolve a problem created by the builder's own decisions would set an unfavorable precedent. It would also be an extraordinary deviation from city code. If you approve this tonight, I guarantee we'll have builders and landowners who are landlocked use this as an example on why they can, it would be justified to receive a variance. Will the granting of this variance be detrimental to public health, safety, and welfare? As has been mentioned, we have speeding concerns. We have a limited visibility intersection right now, a risk for children and pedestrians, and emergency response could be compromised. Doesn't mean it would be, but it could be. Will the granting of this variance increase the flood hazard or flood damage potential? I'm not sure. I assume the city engineer would address that. Does the variance result from physical hardships such as topography or inadequate access to direct sunlight and solar energy systems? I don't believe this is applicable. Is the hardship the result of an action or actions by the owner? Again, this started back in 1978 when phase 1 was initially delayed until 1987 due to a moratorium on sewer development. He resubmitted in 1986 to 87 as a 3-phase subdivision. At that time, phase 3 had 31 lots. It has been reduced, but it is still 20 lots. And when Bittersweet 2 was approved, a variance was approved as well for a cul-de-sac of an extra 1,300 feet. So it is now at 1,800 feet. So to say we have a variance request for 600 feet is putting it on top of an extension that was already granted. Let's see. I did some research on codes for other cities for their variances for cul-de-sacs, and most are 500 to 600 feet. Rosemont, New Ulm, 700, 750, Chanhassen, 800. St. Croix Beach is 1,320, but they require a 2.5 acre lot. And again, Afton, the longest, is 1,300. Do we want to become the longest variance city? I don't think so. And I did also find that the McKinley Creek subdivision in Forest Lake is under review. I don't know if it's come to the council or if it's still in the planning commission. But according to the minutes, and it was in quotes, a key sticking point is the cul-de-sac variance request for that, which is a 13-lot development. And that would put that cul-de-sac at, I believe, just over 900 feet. So to go to 3,000 for our neighborhood is crazy. So I think that's about all I have.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Chad Blumberg and I reside at 7610 231 Street North. I'm asking the council to uphold the decision of your planning commission and the process you established. On April 8th, the planning commission thoroughly reviewed the Forest View Estates proposal and denied it after applying the city's ordinances and standards. This is exactly the role you have entrusted them to fulfill. The council has a clear and appropriate path forward tonight. Option 1. Deny the appeal, affirm the planning commission decision, and deny the preliminary plat. This action is fully supported because one or more criteria under City Code 152.035 has not been met. And because the current plat depends on an overlength cul-de-sac that does not comply with the city engineering standards and has not received any valid variance, the plat cannot stand as proposed. Overturning the commission's decision without clear code-based justification would set a dangerous precedent, undermine your own appointed commission, and signal the established standards can be bypassed. If the code is no longer appropriate, it should be changed openly, not ignored on appeal. Transparency and accountability are not optional. They are fundamental duties of public office. As elected officials, your decisions, Your relationships and your conduct are subject to public scrutiny. The public has the right to examine your actions through meeting minutes, public records, and filings, and other available information to ensure decisions are fair and unbiased. Any potential conflicts of interest must be fully disclosed and clearly documented. Anything less raises serious concerns about the integrity of this decision. These decisions also have firm legal limits. Even in zoning matters, you must make findings supported by evidence and connect those findings directly to statutory criteria. A city cannot simply approve a variance because it prefers a project. There must be defensible legal basis. Minnesota courts have reinforced this. In Murphy versus City of Minneapolis, a resident challenged a city-approved development, and the Court of Appeals found that part of the variance lacked sufficient justification and was voided. This decision directly impacts the residents of the Bittersweet development, and we are paying close attention. If this appeal is granted in a way that disregards the established process, transparency, and legal standards, the residents are prepared to pursue all available legal advice and avenues. I urge you to follow your own rules. Respect the April 8th Commission decision, adopt Council Option 1, and make a decision that is consistent, accountable, and legally defensible. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Michael Anderson, I didn't say my address before, 7570 231st Street North. I graduated from here in 2001. My dad graduated from here, my mom graduated from here. All my family grew up here. We used to have bowling alley right there, movie theater right there, mall right there. My mom's first job, it was at Whitemart. I think it was it Whitemart? Yeah, okay. I was so young back then. By the time they tore it down and built another strip mall, like you guys love. This is not Forest Lake. Stuffing more houses in a community, in a small area, small pocket where we live, where we have people driving through that have no signs. Like I literally said that since they redid North Shore. Oh, and I was talked to about being respectful and polite here, so I will be polite. I was at the bar before here. I'm sorry. I had 2 Jack and Cokes, not drunk. 1 leg. I came here after I got back out of the military. So tours in Iraq, tours in Afghanistan, Bosnia, Kosovo. It's peaceful in my neighborhood, except for the UPS drivers or FedEx drivers that buzz through, and the kid that I had to pull out of his car at one time. Wasn't charged or anything. We're good. 16, 13, 1, and will be born in 1 month are my children's ages. You want my kids to grow up on a street with twice as much traffic, with people that on their cell phones. You know how you guys all know how people drive like this. I sit there and look at people going, what? I drove in Iraq with people shooting at me, looking at a monitor, trying to find where to go. I was not driving very well. So if you're looking at a phone, I mean, no one's shooting at you, but thank God. Well, I don't know. Maybe they should. We're breaking all the rules for what? Why are we breaking the rules? There are guidelines set up. Why are you going against your commission's decision? This is not okay. This is not Forest Lake. As good as it sounds, come on. Be as good as it sounds.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak this evening?
Bring the flag back.
Brad Jacobson, 23230 Hilo Avenue North. Sorry about the hockey game, but these are our homes that we're talking about. I'm here to urge you to uphold the unanimous decision in your planning commission on this matter. You're going to hear a lot of what you've already heard, but I think it's good to repeat some of the things that have been said. The plus 2,000 foot dead end variance is incredibly excessive. It's 340% of code. The application is for an unsafe, no outlet extension through the heart of an established static neighborhood, not new construction in an uninhabited cornfield. The city staff report talks about future adjoining developments and future roadways. None of those possible future things is happening. And the adjacent properties are not developing as in other places in the city that might have been mentioned earlier. There may be some other statements later today about adjoining properties where people are in consultations with owners. I hesitate to say to you that you should wait and see something on paper before you take those to heart. Any of these future possible things are totally irrelevant. They're future possible things. None of them are happening. I disagree with city staff on city code criteria 1, 2, and 5. Those are the 3 things that I'll talk about. It's similar to the same thing as what the commission found. There are no unique circumstances or unique characteristics or special circumstances regarding this property. It's landlocked and it always has been. The city should not guarantee a speculative developer profits by bending the rules. The owner purchased this property, not the developer, years ago. He speculated that the township and now the city of Forest Lake would grant variances so that a developer could purchase the property and build on it. The owner self-created his own hardship. With the full knowledge of the existing physical characteristics, access limitations, and surrounding parcel configuration. How is that speculation not self-created? The developer's appeal doesn't even address the community welfare criteria at all. The city staff report simply concludes, lacking a shred of any supporting evidence, that the development will not be detrimental or injurious to welfare. No basis, no foundation was given for that conclusion. These reported $1 million dwellings do not conform to surrounding property in any way, and they will unfairly inflate the existing tax base of the residents. I love our quiet neighborhood, and I was drawn to it 20 years ago because of the seclusion of city planning. I came from an urban area. Packing 20 more homes into this proposed small area will fundamentally transform the density and attractiveness of our surroundings. This unwise variance will result in many more people in the neighborhood and 50 or more vehicles traveling a single road to get in and out, not to mention the increased delivery and service vehicular traffic. All that impact will substantially negatively affect the quality of life we now enjoy in our homes here in Forest Lake. I see many of my neighbors here. I don't know Johnson or Muskie. Maybe you don't know them either. Or maybe you do. Maybe they're friends of yours. But none of that really matters, right? You're here to represent these constituents. It's your duty to consider their best interests and their way of life. Not speculative developers, not city staff. I'm confident that that'll happen tonight. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else like to speak this evening?
Kevin McCormick, 7330 233rd Street North, or the bittersweet shortcut is 233rd Street. I've lived there on the corner of 233rd and North Shore Trail for 30 years. In that period of time, I have had to replace my mailbox 5 times. One time of my own choice. The other time it's been run over. So I probably don't agree with Mike all that often. But he said it's not if, it's when. It's already when. Those streets are not straight, they're curvy, they're up and down. People travel way too fast. There's no sidewalks. It's not if, it's when. So the other thing is I agree wholeheartedly with a lot of the other people say, the planning commission, we sat here and gave all our arguments to them. We had, I thought, a very strong case, and obviously the city staff agrees with it. They showed what was not met by the variance, but still here we are. So I think it's prudent for you guys to honor the people who came before you, put together ordinances, develop planning commissions, those types of things, and agree with what those findings are. I don't think you can put a hole in any one of those criteria that was unmet. So there's a lot of other things that people have said I strongly agree with, and I asked you to deny this appeal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. My name is Tim Sari. My address is 7370 233rd Street North. First, I want to make a statement about some information used by me today in my presentation. In the state of Minnesota, we have the right by law to record public meetings, just like this meeting's being recorded today. The purpose of this meeting today is for a decision by the Forest Lake City Council to uphold or overturn the Johnson and Muskie appeal of the Forest Lakes own planning committee denial of a variance to the extended, deny the variance to extend the existing non-compliant cul-de-sac and to build 20 new homes on the Muskie property. I'll start my presentation by providing some information the public was told at the neighborhood meeting on March 25th at the Forest Lake City Center here. The first one I have is Stephen Gilmore, a Forest Lake Development Director, and he said Forest Lake Planning is doing everything it can to provide future new road access to the north of the new proposed development, including connecting Hilo Avenue North to 235th Street North.
And where it is, and we've made every effort as the city to make sure that we are connecting it to a future development in the north to be able to kind of maintain that secondary egress out of this neighborhood. So this may be temporary, it may be temporary for 50 years, it may be temporary for 5, but we are building planning for a development to go up north of there in one of those plots.
Okay, next I have Mr. Muskie, the landowner. He said that it was impossible to change the road for traffic flow into this area because we cannot put a road through the Kuhlenkamp Park, and Jeff Weinberg, the farmer to the north of the property, does not want to sell. And Roger Vick, who also has got property that abuts this Hilo Avenue, Roger Vick had planned to develop the land north of Hilo Avenue 20 years ago, but it never happened, and I have no control over that.
The biggest thing is the traffic, but it's impossible to change that. The park, the Kuhlenkamp Park, obviously we can't put a road through there. Jeff's a proud farmer and probably will be for many more years. And on the other road, the old road there, Roger Vick owns the land to the north, and he planned on developing that 20 years ago. And I don't know why or why he hasn't. That was planned, but never happened. So I have no control.
Okay, and then the next one I have is Mr. Johnson, the developer. This was also at the same meeting. He said, "I would love to develop the Vic property to the north, including the Hilo Avenue North Road to 235th Street North."
So you still have the opportunity to buy that one property out from the Vic, whoever that was, he said that.
You do, sure.
Well, no, but you want to put this in, right? I don't want to
put this in. You can. If I could straight question though, I would love to have the opportunity to do that and keep the Nationals away. So it would be, right, it'd be neat to extend that, what I do, instead of having a very dense development coming north.
So to recap what you've heard, Stephen Gilmore, Forest Lake Development Director, was going to do everything in his power to improve the road system in that area. Mr. Muskie, landowner, had no control because his property was landlocked and could not provide any new roads out of that area. And Mr. Johnson, the developer, said he would love to develop the Vic property to the north, including connecting Hilo Avenue North Road to 235th Street North. Okay, so the reason I got all this together is it seemed to me that somebody should contact Mr. Vic. So that's what I did. So I made a call to David Vic, the owner of the property that Hilo Avenue North would have to go through to connect to 235th Street. And here's what Mr. Vic had to say. "We are not in the development business. Are we contemplating selling the property? Yes." Yes.
I appreciate you taking my call. What was your first name, sir?
My first name is Dave.
Dave Vic?
That's correct. Didn't rent the land as far as last year. We're not developers. Are we contemplating selling the property? Yes.
And it seems like you're saying you're open to someone discussing that with you.
Sure. I'm open to anything. We're not in the development business.
Perfect. I appreciate you taking my call.
In conclusion, I believe the city council should uphold the planning committee's decision to deny the variance of the extended cul-de-sac, since there are other options available for the city and the developer to acquire the Vic property and complete the Hilo Avenue North to 235th Street North Road first, even possibly paying for it through a special assessment applied to this new housing development. Remember, this is a way for the landowner and builder to make money, and long after they're gone, we all still live here. Please put our safety first. The last note I had was, I did hand in a petition. I believe the mayor, thank you, did respond to me personally. Thank you for that. And I just wanted to make sure that you got that in your file.
Yes.
Thank you.
This packet. Thank you. Anyone else like to speak tonight?
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Vanderbosch Starkey. I'm here on behalf of my parents, Kate and Gary Vanderbosch, 23070 Hilo Court North, Forest Lake. And I'm not going to go through much at all other than just to reiterate that the standard of review is the exceptional undue hardship that may result from strict compliance of variance code. 152.035A, hardship relating to economic difficulties shall not be considered for the purpose of granting a variance. In this situation, The land can be developed. You can put a house on it. Again, I don't know if it would have to come back for a variance request to extend one more driveway. I don't know that. I'm sure Abby or Stephen Gilmore would be able to address that. Again, it's not an economic hardship in the sense of not being able to use the property. It's an economic difficulty or hardship for the owner and developer that they wouldn't be able to develop the land and have a high yield lot output. All 6 of the elements of 152.035A need to be met. Number 1, again, the hardships I just went through, hardship is not, oh, I apologize. Number 1, there are special circumstances or highly unique conditions affecting the property such that strict application of the provisions of this chapter would deprive the applicant of the reasonable use of the land. Again, reasonable use of land, single family home, 1, not a development. In my opinion, it's A5 that fails on its face. The owner, and I understand the applicant for the variance is the developer, but the owner has been denied previous variance. In review of the minutes back in 1997, there was the plat and there's a variance, and the variance was denied, but the plat was approved. And Maria talked about a little bit about this. I can't figure out from the meeting minutes what Commissioner Cheetah was saying, that it was if Hilo connected to 235th, a certain amount of homes would be able to be developed. If Ideal connected to 235th, even more homes. I'm sure Mike can address that, Muskie. I guarantee he was there, he would know. The other issue is the Muskies have owned the property for 50 years, thereabouts. I'm not a developer. Bittersweet 1, Bittersweet 2, Bittersweet 3 / Forest View Estates was the order. I don't know the reasons that 3 wasn't developed first to increase additional access to North Shore, thereby they wouldn't have to have those variance requests, or there would be maybe a smaller variance request. I don't know that. Again, Mike can address that, but the owner has been denied previous variances. Nothing's changed. If there was an approved, it would have been back in 1997, and I believe it was a preliminary plat with conditions that 235th or Ideal connected to 231st or 231st or Ideal connect to 235th. If you find that the applicant, Mr. Johnson, did not create the hardship by saying that the applicant has applied and he didn't create the hardship, it sets a very dangerous precedent for future variance requests. Specifically, again, I believe somebody else mentioned it, if an owner has been denied a variance, he or she could enlist a developer to apply for the variance, thereby creating an end run around the variance approval process. I believe that is all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak on this tonight? I'll ask one more time if anyone would like to speak on this.
I have a question, I guess. Has there been a watershed study done with the property up there? Because they're gonna be building up over there. We live below some areas. It's gonna come down to us. My basement's already flooded. I don't know who else has flooding basements flooding, anybody? Yeah, okay. So
We have the most stringent watershed in the state pretty much, and I'm sure due diligence has been done.
I seen the holes, on North Shore, so.
All right. Okay, one more time, I'll ask, and then we'll close the public hearing. All right, it's 7:23. We are closing this evening's public hearing and bringing a discussion back to council.
Chair Roberts, the only thing initially you didn't want to hear, you wanted to hear from the applicant, and
I was going to do that as part of just the normal Yeah, agenda item, if that's okay. Is it fine to do either way? Yes, okay. Thank you, though. All right, yeah, let's, instead of bringing it back to council, unless you have any questions now, let's ask the applicant if they'd like to speak. State your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Jason Rude. I'm with E.G. Rude and Sons. I'm a land surveyor and been doing planning work. Our company's almost 50 years old. We'll have our 50th next year. I've been doing this for 3 decades, and I think I bring a fresh approach because I was not involved in Bittersweet 1 and 2. I have learned a lot. Thank you from everyone here. And so I was asked to assist with Forest View Estates with the applicant. And so in my preparation for tonight, I had the opportunity to gather the historic information on the prior phases. I am not going to rehash anything that's already been discussed tonight, but I would like to just bring up a few items that I think are important. Starting in 1978, William Muskie made his first approach to the township pertaining a park. And in that application, this book grew, so I added tabs. I'll make it as quick as possible to get to the information. But in 1978, he had approached the park board, and then he approached the planning commission. And in that application to create the park, he said, I suggested that I would dedicate approximately 23 acres abutting their present park, providing I was successful in convincing the planning commission to zone the retained balance of 40 acres or approximately 17 acres from agricultural to R4. The proposed comprehensive plan indicates a change from agricultural to R1. The net result would be an increase of only 10 home sites over R1, and the park board would get an approximately 23-acre addition to the existing park. I bring that up because it's very clear that from the beginning, that remnant parcel, which Forest View Estates that we're talking about today, in 1978 was intended to be developed. Creating a park created a landlocked parcel with intention of being developed. In June of 1978, it went to the Planning Commission and it was approved. Vern Buska recommended the town board that since Mr. Muskie had a previous agreement with the town that the agricultural property be rezoned to R4. Mike Moen seconded, motion carried with Roger Johnson and Dale Cameron voting no. So it was approved in 1978 to rezone the parcel on the condition that a 23-acre park would be provided, which in turn created this landlocked parcel, which is before you today. Pause. We have a moratorium, is that right? Is that right? We have a moratorium for a decade. And we come ahead to Bittersweet Plat 1. You've all seen it. Everybody's got a copy of it on their computer. They printed it and looked at it. Here's Bittersweet Plat 1. That plat shows Bittersweet Plat 2. It shows Bittersweet Plat 3. It is a concept plan for the overall subdivision. It is a master plan, including the park. Including the park. The file is thin for Bittersweet Plat 1. There is not a development agreement that I've found. Obviously, we all know the history here. We've got Forest Lake Township that was annexed by the city of Forest Lake in 2001, if I recall, right? And so the records are sparse. But what do we have? We have a concept plan that was approved that showed 3 phases. We showed a park. We showed no provisions for an extension through the northerly parcels being the farmland at that time. This was developed, planned in good faith based on the land that was owned at that time. Proceeding ahead, the final plat is recorded, 1987. The deed for the park is filed on the heels of the filing of the plat. The parkland was not accepted prior to this time. They waited to file the deed. William Muskie and Elsie Muskie, Mike's folks, filed the deed December 1987 for the 23-acre park. Clearly, this was a master plan. At that time, the landlocked parcel was created with the exemption of a park by the township. Phase 1 is built. It's a great neighborhood. Well liked. Planning starts for phase 2. And a major subdivision is applied for. Public hearing is presented. Development agreement is created. This development for Bittersweet Plat 2 has a street from the intersection of the existing center line of phase 1 that was extended to the northerly boundary of 1,539.85 feet. There is no mention of a variance needed to extend that road over 1,500 feet. Nothing. Not in the developer's agreement. There's nothing in the minutes. There's no mention of a need for a variance. One wasn't granted to allow phase 2 to be extended 1,500 feet. That is not a cul-de-sac. That is an extension of a road in a master plan development. It gets approved. The land is developed. Bittersweet Plat 2. Again, the concept plan approved at the time of phase 2 has a running history, and it shows phase 3. And at that time, they revised phase 3 so that it was a cul-de-sac and it did not extend easterly into the park. Revisions were made at that time to accommodate what was needed. Again, we didn't plat it back then. I'm just recapping what I learned. It's fascinating, okay? But Bittersweet Plat 2, again, 1,500 plus street built. No variance was needed. Bittersweet Plat 3, as everybody knows here, this is the thickest chapter in the history. You all wrote, right? You all know the history, okay? The original memo from the town engineer and the staff, it's still a township. The 7 bullet points had no mention of a need for a variance for street length. No mention of it. At that time, since it's a township, the plat went before the county plat board and the town board, because it was a township, it wasn't a municipality. So there's back and forth that happens, and the public dissension begins. And it's very clear. And I've read through it. Yet these folks are willing to live on a street that didn't require variance exceeding 1,500 feet, yet they're going to apply a double standard to phase 3. This is not a cul-de-sac. This is a planned subdivision, okay? And this is my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. But phase 2, again, had a development agreement. This makes no note of it. Phase 3, the Muskies got burnt out. It is confusing. I agree with the last person that spoke. It is confusing there, the public record, in that you read the articles and a plat was approved, but it was a phased plat for the final phase 3 with some condition of an easement being extended. It's confusing. But talking to Mike, and I think Mike's going to speak too, he got burnt out with it. It was exhausting. You read the correspondence from the city attorney, township attorney at that time, to the town board, and even his legal opinion is gray. It's confusing. And he states that this should be revisited. He also makes note of multiple examples that had previously been approved without the need for a variance for a street length prior to this development in phase 3. I get it's a nice neighborhood. I get people don't like change. To me, that's what this is. Phase 3, I think I get to finish. I was here, I didn't go. Let me finish, okay? Okay. So, I'm almost done. I've said what I needed to say, but to me, I don't understand the double standard that's being applied to this development. Not only did Bittersweet Plat 2 get approved without a variance for a street that exceeds 1,500 feet, there are 9 other projects in the city of Forest Lake that exceed it, that did not require a variance. 6 were approved by the township, 3 have been approved by the city. Phased development happens, and I will tell you, I would guess Abby might state this too, phased development is done better nowadays. You approve an overall preliminary plat, you come through with subsequent final plats, so it's very clearly communicated. That didn't happen. Was that a function of a transition from a township to a city? I don't know. I don't know why. But I can tell you that the phased developments that have happened in Forest Lake in recent history here, those didn't require a variance. They're phased, and it's okay. It's accepted in many communities. City Code 152035, we've all become experts on that. And I will speak to it very briefly. And obviously, this is just my opinion. But staff checked all boxes for all 6. You've got a staff. These are your professionals. All 6 were agreed with. If you go with 1A, special circumstances, reasonable use, highly unique conditions, is not the dedication of a park to create a landlocked parcel a unique circumstance for a development that started 50 years ago with that intention? I think it checks that box. Public health, safety, and welfare, been brought up consistently. The staff, the fire chief and the police chief have no concerns. I think that speaks for itself. Flood hazard, yes, this gentleman here asked about Comfort Lake. It has been to the Comfort Lake, Forest Lake Watershed District. We have paused it. We are ready for approval. It's queued up to be approved. This needs to happen first. So there is not a flood concern. Physical hardship. Absolutely, there's a hardship. The applicant agreed to dedicate a 23-acre park, which landlocked a parcel with the intentions of good faith that this would be a phased development. How is that not a physical hardship? I've heard folks say run a road through the park. A publicly dedicated park, we're going to change gears and run a road? I don't think that's feasible. Self-created hardship. The hardship is not a result of an action or actions by the owners. How is it that an applicant in 1978 that clearly in his first application stated the intention of dedicating a park to create a landlocked parcel was for development? That was on applicant 1. Permitted uses, the zoning fits. There's no question there. This is my last piece, and then I'll get out of your hair. The 2040 comp plan. There's been questions saying, what's different now? 2040 comp plan. Approved in 2020. There are 5 overarching goals. One of them is guide land and manage growth. I won't read the whole thing, but an important role of the comprehensive plan is to appropriately guide the use of land and manage the timing by which it is developed. And it goes on to talk about its uses, infrastructure. This land was in stage 1. You can't see it on this map. You've probably seen it before. But this property is in stage 1, intended to be developed in the decade of 2020 to 2030. It is 2026. We are over halfway through that decade. And I think the timing's right. And I believe Mike Muskie. You want to say something? Okay. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah.
At this point, thank you.
Okay. As you can imagine, this is a
Mike,
little
just
little
state your
bit.
name
Oh,
and
I'm
address
sorry.
for the
Mike
record.
Muskie, 6533 North Shore Trail, Forest Lake, Minnesota. I had to look through a lot of things that my dad did. He passed away in 2007, June 30th. And one of the emotional things about this property is he was hurt on this piece that we're talking about today. He and my younger sister had horses. And of course, my dad had to have the most wild horse. It was a Saturday morning. The horse bucked up and fell on him. And somehow my 11-year-old sister drove the car out of there and got him to the hospital. And he didn't leave the hospital for almost a year. That's when things changed. The first plat I have actually that he drew up in 3 phases was 1974. I found it in his file. A couple of things I just want to straighten out. The property was owned by my dad. He developed the first 2 phases, and if he was still here, he'd be developing the 3rd phase. I own the property. It's the Muskie Group. So I have 5 brothers and sisters. My oldest sister wanted to get out, so we bought her out. My brother Bob is right here. He's one of the partners. My brother Bill, who's sick tonight, also lives on Hayward like Bob, is one of the partners. My younger sister Shelley, who was the one that drove my dad out when the horse accident happened, is also a partner. And my brother Jim, who lives in California. I am a 20% owner. The reason I'm following through is because I promised my dad I would do it. It was his dream to do this. And the one thing he'd be very proud of today is how much the first 2 phases that he fought so hard for, how much the people loved living there. That was his dream. Okay. And that would make him proud. It really would. Hopefully he's looking down from heaven thinking that. A couple of other things I want to clear up. The David Vick. I called David. I promised at that neighborhood meeting, which I don't know, did it go an hour and a half? I didn't record it. But I promised to call David Vick. I said, I don't know what his plans are. I really don't know him that well. The last time I talked to him, he was not interested in developing. He told me the same thing. He said, Mike, we're not developers. If you don't know, his family owns a ton of apartment buildings in the Twin Cities and other properties. And that's kind of their deal. I believe part of his family owns a bunch of farmland. And Jeff was farming that piece too. And he stopped farming because David kept raising the price. And when I talked to Jeff the other day, I learned a couple things. He sends me a check for $400 or $500. I've never questioned it. My dad liked him. I like him. I support that he farms. I have not tried to get more money from him. But I'm a 20% partner in the development. So I called David. He told me the same thing. I immediately talked to 2 developers and got them in touch with him. Unfortunately, the first thing out of the first one's mouth was, where is it? I said, Forest Lake. No way. I know we're trying to work on that, but that was what he said. But they will sell that property and it will be developed. I just don't know when. David's a negotiator, and I think Jeff Winberg could attest to that. That's why he doesn't farm it. I just want to point out a couple of things that I haven't allowed on that property, or my family hasn't allowed. There are people in the community that live there, and I've got kids and grandkids that want to run dirt bikes in there. They said, you own the land, you're getting $500 from Winberg. We'll pay you $500. We want to ride motorcycles and 4-wheelers. And they could. I mean, we own it. But I didn't because I care about the neighbors. I thought, boy, that's going to be a huge amount of noise. It's not fair. I wouldn't like it if I lived there, so I didn't do it. And also, I think it'd be a huge problem for Jeff. His cattle is right along the border. And I respect Jeff. I really, really do. But the other thing he told me that day, and this was just this last week, was the amount of people that use that property. It's kind of the bittersweet park, I guess. Somebody was turkey hunting out there last week. I have no idea who. He said people are walking on the property all the time. We've discovered at least one major encroachment that's happened 80 feet into the property. We haven't dealt with that stuff because we weren't doing anything with the property. So we were just nice, you know, we support the people in the community. My dad fought his butt off to get them there. And again, he would be very proud of that. But this was always planned from 1974 on, 3 phases, donated the park for 3 phases. This is not a speculative new development here at all. And the only reason I'm not doing it is because my 4 brothers and sisters that are partners said, hey, we're not going to put up the $2 million, you know, find somebody else. So I did. I mean, that's really the truth. Otherwise, I've developed in Forest Lake, Wyoming, Andover, big development in North Branch, Stacy, Lindstrom, Osceola, and all those developments were phased. And every time we do a future phase where there was open land next to the homes that we had already built, they didn't want it. Well, it's obvious, I wouldn't either. You got free land right next door that you can use. And I'm sure when Vic decides to develop, the same group will be here talking about that because it's open land. I get it. I understand it. I would feel the same way. But it was approved. It was dedicated from the very beginning to do that this way in 3 phases, 1 development. And again, I'm channeling my father. I'm just trying to finish his dream. And it's a little bit insulting to hear some of these things because he cared so much about the people that built in there. And he really did. And he would be so proud that they're happy. I don't know how proud he'd be tonight, but that's, you know, whatever. That's all I have to say, unless you have questions.
Not at this time. No. All right, any other applicant like to speak? The other, no, Jaron's not here this evening. All right, bring it back to council. Questions, thoughts, concerns?
Well, I appreciate everybody coming out. It's nothing like a good council meeting with a long open here, you know, public hearing to hear from those who we represent. And we really appreciate everybody coming out tonight. I listened in its entirety, the April 8th Planning Commission meeting and parts of it more than once. I've also driven the neighborhood a couple of times, different times of the day, Saturday afternoon. One thing I noticed that was commented on a couple of times tonight was lack of signage, no outlet, speed limit signs. And so before tonight's meeting, I actually talked to Dave, Public Works, and just asked if that's something that could be done. I know on my own road, I'm at the end of a dead end, and there was lots of traffic coming down there. And we put up a no outlet, and it's cut down tremendously. So hopefully those on Hilo that are experiencing that traffic, I apologize. My car was one of them this last weekend, a couple times. But I think that's an easy fix. The other thing I heard a lot about tonight was frustration in the neighborhood around speed. So hopefully the speed limit signs help that. Hopefully there's public or this community coming together and all the door knocking, that's something that comes down. You can't control the FedEx drivers. I heard the UPS guys aren't so bad, but can't, you know, maybe have as much control over that. But that's certainly something that's important, especially in a smaller condensed neighborhood like you guys have, that, you know, those teenage drivers are being responsible, and I've had several of them myself. So I know what those can be. One of the things I was impressed by in the communities I drove out there is you have really wide streets, much more so than where I live. You know, lack of sidewalks, unfortunately, but you guys have nice wide streets. I guess I'll just say it, I'm actually, I believe that all 6 criteria have been met. And that's probably not what people want to hear tonight. But I think when you have a piece like this, you know, the idea of you're in the planning commission to put a road through Cooling Camp to go to the south, I thought, my stars, we don't want a 100-foot monopole in the park. We really want a road going through there. That seemed like a non-starter to me. Public health and safety, I've heard a lot about that. There's several people here tonight that live at the end of a very long road. And I'm not 100% certain if you're certainly the kids and the speed is one thing, but extending this road, I mean, that's on those people that should buy this into that longer development. It's a decision they need to make if they're willing to be, 1,000 feet from the closest road or 2,600 feet from the closest road. Because even if this got denied and we waited till Hilo goes through, I think that this development's still going to need a variance. That's, to have it developed like the plat's laid out. Personally, I live at the end of a one-way in, one-way out community with probably about 100 homes. And from the beginning of that road to my driveway is a half mile. And I've been assured by the chief of Al Newman that he'd have no problem getting to my home if I needed it. And our public safety professionals have said that, it's possible. Is it ideal? No, but there's lots of neighborhoods. Itasca to, I think it's the north or whatever road I drove that this weekend. That's from the beginning to the end of the cul-de-sac is 0.8 miles. So nearly 1 mile, one way in, one way out. So from a public safety standpoint, those new people coming in, that's on them if they want to live at the end of that long of a road. So as far as physical hardship and not self-created, again, we heard from, I think his name was Jason, about the park dedication. And, this was a planned phase. You can see it when you drive out there. There's 2 roads that currently at a dead end. We all knew, or should have known, that this phase was going to come. Otherwise, those roads wouldn't be stubbed in. So.
Anyone else? I'll just ask a quick question. It was mentioned. Abby, remind me, I believe on density from the Med Council, to put just a single home out there would not be allowed under Med Council rules.
No, a single home would be allowed, but the Met Council, the overall density of the community does depend on all land in the urban service area. And so when we are looking at lesser developed neighborhoods that don't meet the minimum density requirements in that given future land use area, then that does skew our overall density in the community. A single family home could be permitted here. It is also was guided though for urban development in the urban service area, meaning more than or implying more than one home.
Just I'll make a couple comments. I understand the concerns of the public. It's hard to know the unknown. When things change around you, you don't know exactly what's going to happen. You only anticipate only bad things can happen. I think this development with this builder, a local builder, is a greater option than having a national builder come in and put up whatever they want to put up. This also contemplates and includes a trail, part of the trail to bring us into Coulankamp. That's part of the parks plan that's been in for 20 some years to potentially maybe get a trail all the way from downtown out to Coulankamp Park. This segment here starts that process. I also did talk to Mr. Vick. I had a good conversation with him. Basically the same thing. It's highly likely this will go on the market very soon is what he said. That was my conversation with him. So Jaron Johnson builds homes. It's not a cookie cutter home. These are all custom homes. I live in a development just next to him, Forest Hills Preserve. He started that project 4 years ago, still not built out. The idea of 20 homes being built within the next couple of years, it probably is likely a longer haul. And at that point, it is also likely that that road going to the north to 235th would continue. So that would eliminate, I think, most of everyone's concerns. What I'm hearing tonight is really just that outlet. Getting that taken care of seems like would satisfy most of the residents here. And again, I get change isn't easy, but this was planned out for years. And I think it's a great move for the city. Again, the trail connecting to the park. I don't know if it's on our parks plan to budget that, but I would advocate that we do so that everyone in this neighborhood and their children, their grandchildren would have a safe way into Coulankamp Park instead of having to go out into North Shore and risk your lives. We know what North Shore is like. And so this seems like a great opportunity to get this neighborhood directly connected to that park in much safer manner.
We built it before.
Mayor Roberts, if I can just address the inquiry that was made, public improvements are required to be constructed before new homes can be built. So a trail extending off the roadway would be constructed prior to new home construction.
Any other thoughts, comments?
I would have to agree with both Councilmember Erickson and also you, Mayor, as far as the development and so forth. It brings a very nice home plots to the area aesthetically and price point wise. It'll increase your value of your homes and property. As far as the developer and the builder, I think maybe they were hoping that this farm field land would probably have been available, would have been more aesthetically helpful to the development and releasing some of the traffic concerns that not only the public that lives there now shares, but also the developer and the builder. I don't know. It's a very hard fought battle. There's lots of moving parts with this, and it's a very hard decision for us also to make. So I appreciate everybody's coming here and attending tonight, voicing their opinions on things and sharing your concerns with us as well. Thank you.
So I think as I've reviewed in detail all of this information and heard all of your comments and read all of your comments, you know, I served on planning commission for nearly 20 years. And I know Mr. Larson was on planning as well. And there are circumstances where, you know, variances are needed. I think we as a city have to correct a wrong. This plat was approved. This plat was submitted to the city to be built on. And for whatever reason, something happened and it didn't get done. There's no way the landowner would have dedicated all that land to a park if he wasn't going to get his project built. So somewhere between the disconnect from the township to the city, something happened. This is not an unusual project. We've got a lot of long roads like this. This one just happens to end that eventually someday, hopefully, it will go through. So I agree with the staff. I agree with the staff and the circumstances and the criteria that they've already, we pay our staff a lot of money and our engineers a lot of money and our public safety and our public works department a lot of money to review these things. And I understand the planning commission disagreed. I think I disagree with the planning commission. I believe this project should be done. Now, with the traffic and the speed on that road, that's something else that has to be addressed. Maybe more stop signs have to be added. Maybe we need to clear some of those roadways better so people can see. If people are driving fast on that road, that's another issue. But you're talking 20 homes that would have been originally 35 homes. And these homes are going to be very nice homes, and they are certainly going to be a nice addition to that neighborhood.
Mr. Anderson, that opportunity for public speaking is over.
So I would agree with the mayor and the other council members that this project should go through.
I agree with what everyone else has already said. I agree the 6 criteria have been met. I think the number one that has been talked about the most tonight has been the safety. And for me, what I look for is the fire chief and then the police chief and our staff input. And knowing that they feel comfortable with this length of a road, it makes me feel comfortable with that criteria and that criteria being met. I appreciate you all being here and you all voicing your opinions, but again, this has been planned for decades. And I know, as everyone has already mentioned, that change is very difficult, change is hard. But since this road has been stubbed out, it's been known, been known that this is coming. So just to wrap up my opinion, I believe all the criteria is met, and I don't believe that planning commission got it right.
Abby, could you put up the options there for?
Page 200.
So again, you've got the two options: affirm the planning commission denial. And then we move forward on the either one, we have to take action on the variance, then we should move forward with that preliminary plat. The other option is to reverse the planning commission's denial, approving the variance and indicating that 152035's criteria are met, and then we move on to the preliminary plat.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I'll make a motion to reverse the Planning Commission Resolution 0422-2601 and approve the requested subdivision variance for the Forest View Estates over length cul-de-sac based on findings that the request satisfies City Code 152.035 with the following condition: the subdivision variance shall remain valid only with the associated preliminary plat approval if a complete final plat application is not submitted with 1 year of the preliminary plat approval or within the time allowed by the development agreement. The variance shall be void unless the city council grants a written extension for good cause consistent with City Code 152.081A.
Second. Motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, next item, then we move on to the plat approval.
So most people, you already know the proposal, the site context, the history. I won't get into that. As mentioned, it's a 20 single-family detached homes on 15.85 acre site. There's only about 12 net developable. We take out wetlands, stormwater ponds. The layout is as you see it up there. The road coming in, a future roadway extension for the next phase or the next land to be developed to the north at the time that that is ready to be developed. Cul-de-sac, we would have a sidewalk on the north side of the road that would lead to a trail that would extend then on the top side of Cooling Camp Park. The net density is 1.66 units per acre, which is consistent with the future land use guidance and the comprehensive plan. It's proposed to be zoned single family, so it is all lots are consistent with the zoning district at a minimum of 25,000 square feet per lot. Really, other than that cul-de-sac length tonight that you've already discussed, there isn't anything in this that staff doesn't think isn't ready to move forward. You do have some recommended conditions in the staff report. I do think that with both of these items, we would bring back formal resolutions memorializing the council's action. One thing that should be discussed, currently conditions outlined in the report do address additional parkland dedication. We don't have the greatest record that the acreage that was dedicated was for all three phases, though it is implied. Today, the acreage that was dedicated wouldn't be sufficient. We would require more usable land area. We have talked with the developer about a per lot fee in lieu, but the council should discuss whether or not you think that historic parkland dedication satisfies the requirements. And if so, we may need to amend a condition. I'm going to just have to unplug to pull that up just really quick because I believe there's a condition in the staff report about that. Otherwise, staff's recommendation would be to move forward with preliminary plat approval with conditions as outlined in the staff memo. Any questions?
Questions? So,
Were you pulling something up for us?
I'm just going to pull up where that where we talked about that condition in the staff memo. Second. Right, sometimes don't only have one screen in a meeting like this. So the conditions would be on page 200, starting in there. That would be a motion to, staff's recommendation would be a motion to approve the preliminary plat, Forest View Estates preliminary plat based on the findings of fact and subject to the conditions listed. There's 11 conditions. And then I think condition number 8 is the one that addresses fair market value for cash fee in lieu of land dedication.
You're not pulling anything up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I thought we were waiting, I thought we were waiting for you.
I pulled it up.
I mean, I found it here. I just thought you were pulling something up on.
No, I'm sorry.
Well, you-
Let's see
yeah.
this Parkland area.
Well, while you're doing that, I guess maybe this question would be, I don't know, maybe more towards Amanda. If the developer is agreeable to this per lot park dedication fee, is there a way to make that so it goes towards that trail that would connect this neighborhood into Coon Camp
Your Honor.
as a condition potentially or something?
Yes, so Your Honor, Council, if if that was the direction from the council that the funds were to be earmarked for the trail, then we would collect or, do the calculation the per unit number times the number of units, and then we would apply that to the cost to do the trail. Presumably, the cost of the trail would be more than that amount, and so then we would have to work out who's covering the remainder of the trail costs.
I don't know if council would be open to that, or if we'd want that to go in front of the Parks Commission first for a recommendation potentially. Okay.
So I did pull up on the screen, this is the parcel of land that was dedicated as part of the 3 phases of Bittersweet. Theoretically, allegedly. I mean, I think we can assume that. Everything that's yellow on there is National Wetland Inventoried wetland. Today, our parkland dedication ordinance does require usable acreage, so 10% of the usable acreage. If this was going to come back for us today, we wouldn't accept this as parkland dedication. We have talked with the developer. The developer had been aware of the fee in lieu. I know the landowner is, states exactly what the record is, that this should be sufficient to meet that. I think the developer probably, I know he's not here tonight to talk about this, would be probably favorable to talking about a fee in lieu if it was going to go towards the improvements in Cooling Camp. One thing that I think we could ask legal counsel is we could also punt this to final plat, that we finalize all parkland dedication prior to the approval of the final plat. That gives us a little bit more time to work with the developer on seeing if we can find a common ground on that matter. If the council was favorable, then it would just be to motion to approve with conditions, 11 conditions outline, amending number 8, that parkland dedication would be determined prior to final plat approval.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the Forest View Estates preliminary plat based on the findings of fact and subject to the conditions listed, of which there's 11. Modifying number 8, and Abby, can you help me with the language you want?
Modifying to read that the parkland dedication requirements will be determined prior to final plat approval.
Thank you.
Second. Motion second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is that it on those?
That's it.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. All right, 8B, potential future Coon Camp Tower request. And Jolene is going to start with that.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This agenda item pertains to potential future cell tower proposal at Cooling Camp Park. Mayor Roberts and Councilmember Erickson did request this item be added to tonight's agenda for discussion following the neighborhood meeting, which was held here at City Hall on April 30th, and subsequent resident feedback received by both council members and staff. At this time, just to be clear, there has been no formal application submitted. So there's no pending land use application up for formal council consideration tonight at this meeting. This discussion is intended to provide an opportunity for council to reflect on the community concerns that have been raised, including the impacts noted by residents related to neighborhood character, sightlines, property values, and health and safety perceptions. Staff would recommend that no action be taken tonight, but that council rather provide direction regarding any additional information that council would like to see brought forward regarding this matter. and direct staff to come back with further information. And Abby's got, has been heavily involved in this as well. She may have additional comments to add. But otherwise, we'll turn it over to council.
I think the only comment that I would add is just reiterating what Jolene said. There's no formal application. This all started a year ago when TowerCo came to the council and said, hey, will you sign on this application? And at the time, the council said, we're not comfortable with that. And that was the kickoff for some of the public engagement that the company chose to do a few weeks ago here at City Hall. I think the only direction that I would, ask of the council is if there's additional things you'd want to see, that we just would prepare that for you if Tower Company chooses to come back. But I do think that it's good that the council does discuss this. I know, that can help us provide some feedback to Tower Company too.
From an email we got from them today, I'm pretty sure they're watching tonight. And interestingly, I mean, the feedback has been overwhelming in our email inbox, and I tried to respond to all of them. So hopefully those were received. Ironically, they did send attachments, including 2 emails from those that were in the room for that public engagement. They didn't speak up, but they did note how poor their coverage is in the area. So just some folks in that side of the lake that seem to be lacking in their cell coverage. And I'm not sure if that's because they're with inferior carriers or what the case is. But I just thought it'd be healthy to kind of get council a chance to weigh in. So that's why that was helpful to have it on here, just given the timing of the hearing and the communication. I guess one thing, I'd be interested in is, what other locations, if there's a felt need from the Tower Company side of things relative to, their clients, what other options are there? It's been suggested through email and even tonight's public comments that, hey, there's, industrial areas, or, like we've got a bunch on the water tower over by the apartments, Tower Park where kids play hockey. What other areas has Tower Company tried to identify on that side of the lake that would be equally viable for their customers and what they're trying to accomplish without, interfering with the skyline and home values? And maybe you don't know, but I mean, that'd be something I'd be curious to know.
I will say that I don't know what on elsewhere throughout the community. I do know that they are looking in the northeast corner because of the coverage limitations. I think a year ago they did provide, and staff provided for you, coverage maps, which do show a lack of service inside buildings throughout the whole northeast area and on the lake. And so that was one of the reasons that the council said, hey, this might be worth us considering. I do believe they are talking with private landowners in that northeast area. But when it comes down to public land in that area, we haven't been looking at any other public land in the northeast corner or on the kind of west side. The towers, or the water tower, the facilities at Tower Park are pretty full, and we are trying to I don't know if decommission is the right word, but get those moved from that site into another northern site over in Bixby Park, which could help provide some more coverage in that northern area. But we do still believe, from a community and economic development perspective, having that broad coverage throughout the entire city in the far northeast corner is something that is to a benefit to the entire community. I understand in neighborhoods don't know where they're looking beyond this site at the moment specifically.
Thank you.
To maybe look into it. One of the residents had mentioned some about a grant that was provided to the Coulincamp Park, and there's restrictions as far as what you can and cannot do with that. Do we have knowledge of that, or is it something we can look into further as far as?
Yeah, definitely. If an application comes back, we would have physical documentation for you. Staff has called the DNR. It wasn't me, it was Stephen in our offices, and we don't believe that those restrictions and covenants are still valid, but we would have that documentation for sure.
Thank you kindly.
Just that in our inboxes, we did receive an just overwhelming communication from the community that the cell tower is not, that Coulincamp is not the place for the cell tower. And I defer for that to the community members. And I think if we could come back as a council for a workshop or maybe defer it to the Parks Commission in the sense of, do we want cell towers to be in parks at all, or do we not? And where would we want cell towers to be, if it's in private places within the city, or if we want them to go to, or public places in the city, or if we'd want them to go to private folks. So
I think that's great. I just do want to say this did go to the Parks Commission as well, who seemed favorable to the request as well. We had brought that, I think, before we came to the council, was getting some park input. Now, granted, that was, before hearing the neighborhood kind of meeting that TowerCo held.
Was it favorable to the request to them just to go out and engage the public, or just favorable in general?
Favorable to the tower and cooling camp. I think Parks Commission saw the potential lease revenue as a benefit to the community park system. At that time, there was no, resident engagement or feedback. I don't know if they'd have the same, opinions today if they were sitting in a public hearing like this. But I think that they looked at the possibility of utilizing underutilized park space, or and then potential lease revenue as an asset for the community. I will say, I do think that it is a great question, Councilmember Valento, of do we even want to see these on public lands? I think it's always going to be a, yeah, maybe. All fits approach. Can I just make one other comment? In this zoning district, towers are allowed by conditional use permit. Conditional uses are permitted uses. We just have a right to put conditions on them. So I think, tower company is identified, if they have identified that they would like to put a tower into the northeast area, whether it's on public land or private land, there's little that the city would be able to do to say no, as long as they met all of the requirements of a conditional use permit. We can put conditions on it. The unique situation that the city is in right now is, in order to ask the question to put it on public land in cooling camp, they would have to have us sign as a landowner. So that's just the uniqueness here. If you owned a piece of property across the street from cooling camp and it was sufficiently sized, they could go and get that landowner's signature and move this process. I can't say seamlessly. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of public input and a lot of requests for information to provide as part of that process and through that dialogue. But it is a use that we do allow, as long as, and we can put conditions upon it.
Quick follow-up. So I was out in cooling camp. I noticed that we have a safety siren out there for tornado. Just for reference, how tall is that? Any idea, Dave? It's all those.
Like that.
Right.
Sure, there's regulations, and I would say it's probably 25, 30 feet or.
This is proposed at 100. It would be if right.
Yeah, they have actually also, with that public safety device, we've just had very brief conversations about them affixing it to their pole for broader coverage in that area as well. So these are conversations that were premature. From staff's point, we haven't talked about ancillary benefits to the city. So I imagine that if they did want to come back, I can assure you that we would definitely have a wide-reaching conversation about all the possible, benefits to that site and the community as a whole.
Thank you.
It is not public comment. Sorry, I apologize for that. So in the almost 4 years I've been on council, I've not gotten more feedback than any other issue than this particular one, and not just by the neighborhood, but just people using that park, residents throughout the community, sports organizations, about not wanting that. We entertain this based on planning commission or Parks Commission wanting to look at maybe revenue sources. I'll be honest with you, for me, at least in that park, putting a tower there, regardless of the dollars, opportunity is a non-starter for me. And so with that, to save a lot of people's time, staff's time, tower companies, I'm going to make a motion that we deny any future request of a tower coming to Kuhn-Camp Park.
I would second that motion, Mayor.
We have a motion, second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Right. Next item, Public Works Facility Project. We have Jolene, Dave, and Amanda all weighing in on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item tonight relates to the proposed future Public Works facility, and into this discussion tonight is tended primarily just to give staff some additional direction. Following the April workshop, we were directed to provide information to this council regarding potential project delivery methods, including general contractor, construction management advisor, and construction manager at risk models, as well as alternative partnership and financing concepts. This evening, former Washington County Public Works Director Don Tyson is going to walk us through his experiences using these different delivery methods. And he'll talk on his experiences with all different options. In the packet for council's consideration was also a memorandum from our city attorney outlining the potential ownership and financing structures that were discussed at the April workshop, including leaseback concepts and other alternatives. So following Don's presentation, staff will speak on that matter and answer any questions from council. And then Public Works Director Dave Adams can also speak to some possible staging of the new facility and what that might look like, should council want to consider some other options for cost-saving measures. So at this time, we're not asking for any formal council action. This is more an opportunity for council to provide staff with additional direction. It's important to note that today, 1 week shy of the closing of the state legislative session, no decisions have been made regarding potential local sales tax authorization. So that's still out there as well. So we're just going to ask for council to provide additional direction tonight on how to continue evaluating delivery methods, funding options, and potential consulting support as the project discussion moves forward. So Don is here and would welcome him up to walk through his presentation.
Thanks, Don.
Evening, Mayor, Council. I still know how to clear out a room. Well, glad to share my experiences tonight delivering vertical projects. My career, and I use the term vertical on purpose because I started my career as a road engineer, and delivering vertical projects is a lot different than horizontal projects. There's certainly different options. The cover screen here is actually a picture of the project that just had a grand opening, the Oakdale Public Works Building under construction. 75,000 square foot building that you see there. Offices are the steel frame. It's probably not going to show if the mouse will show or not. Yeah. 2-story office building, fleet storage area, and mechanics and operations area. For context, the current Oakdale Public Works Building, all of it fits inside just the storage area. So they certainly saw a significant improvement with their project down there. So just a quick agenda, the topics I'll just walk through for you tonight. And I certainly glad to take questions at any time. Glad to have this as two-way as possible for you. There's no, might be stupid answers, but they're not gonna be stupid questions. So selecting the method, first off, there really is no single best method for every project. That's the good news, is that there's no single method. And that's also the bad news, is you have options to decide. But similar to how you have to make difficult choices as a council on budgets or other issues before you, there's factors that you balance with these decisions, and you see those there. How complex is the project? How certain do you need the cost to be? Schedule efficiency, level of risk management, how much risk do you assign? And just like any other business transaction, the person that assumes the most risk, they also benefit the most from that. Capacity and expertise of staff, every city, every county is different. And then certainly cost. So moving on to the 3 delivery methods, and I know you've had some discussion on these, so I won't go into the real deep mechanics of those. But what I like to visualize with folks on these deliveries of projects is a 3-legged stool. Certainly you have the owner, the city, and then you have the architect. And the third leg is the builder, the construction firm. So when you're deciding on the delivery method, you're really deciding on the third leg of that stool. And we all know we like a stool to be stable and level and work together really well. And that's how do you get to that point, right? So moving on to my experiences with the different delivery methods. Prior to 2005, the primary delivery method in Washington County was using a general contractor. The R.H. Stafford Library, which is a library down in Woodbury, was the last project done with that. And it had multiple partners. It was a really complex project. You had the county, the city, the library board involved with that project. And a general contractor was used for construction. I wasn't involved yet, specifically being assigned project delivery of projects, but the public works director after that project said, Don, can you do some research? Because this just isn't working for us. What are some different ways to deliver projects? And if I had to summarize what the frustration was with the elected officials and the administration was that they just didn't feel they had control over the work, the cost, or the schedule. Pretty important things, right? But it doesn't mean that we didn't continue to use general contractors method. We certainly continue to use it on relatively simple projects like a park, restroom, shelter, where we knew that it was going to be really simple. We didn't need to do much value engineering. There was a low risk for design errors where we could see big change orders. Certainly no specialized equipment was needed, park, restroom, and also easily managed by the staff that we had on board. So after some research, we landed on using a construction manager agency method. And actually the first project we did was the Forest Lake Service Center and Hardwood Creek Library. That was the first one we used this method, which seems like yesterday, but hard to believe it was 20 years ago. And you can see some of the other big projects that we did there. And certainly these projects were all complex, having multiple departments or functions, required some value engineering. You go into these projects, and as you've been seeing on the Public Works building, you have different iterations. It's just not a simple building. Staging of work typically, for instance, on the county courthouse, we had to move people off site, bring people back onto site, find a way to keep the courts operating and keep 12 judges happy. So that was kind of fun. So what are the advantages that we've seen or benefits we saw with construction manager at risk? Is the first thing to go back to that three-legged stool. So obviously the owner, you're the owner, and you pick an architect professionally through a best value process, and you're picking the construction manager the same way then. You're picking them professionally so that you know who's going to build this project. In the interviews, you actually meet the superintendent, that person what's going to be the boots on the ground every day building this thing, the project manager. So you're picking that three-legged stool professionally versus comparing that to a GC project. You don't know who's going to run that project till you open the bids and they show up. Value engineering expertise. I'm sure you've seen that already with the Public Works project. Working with the team you're working with, they can bring expertise that the architect doesn't necessarily have on that end. It's budget development, reflecting current market conditions. Any construction manager doing this work, they've got spreadsheets and spreadsheets of data of what things cost. Not that architects don't have that, but builders know what it costs to build things and can bring that experience to the table. The fourth bullet there might seem kind of strange, that having a construction management team protect against single person, but these projects don't happen in 2 or 3 months or summer. They go on for sometimes 2 years, and people leave, people get sick, take different jobs. And so to have a team so somebody can step in and not relying on a single person is actually another benefit. But what I saw as real benefit in the last 2 bullets, there's bidding flexibility. And I'll come back to that in a little bit. But, when the city engineer brings you a project bid, he's got one contract for that contractor. But that contractor has working for them the grading, the paving, the sewer, the pipes, the sod. On a construction management agency project, you're bidding each of those individual work scopes separately. So you could have 30 plus different work scopes: the grading, the earthwork, the utilities, the concrete, the walls, the carpentry, the carpet, you name it. So it's not just one price, and I'll come back to it a little bit. But then also schedule development and management. So you can't put a number to this, but if let's just say that you own a painting company and you want to do more work with that construction manager. When that construction manager says you need to get on the gas and get moving, there's incentive to do that. Whereas you really don't have a relationship with a general contractor because they know their relationship is wholly based on low bid. And so it's a dynamic there that it's hard to put a finger on. But one example I have is we had 1 week to remodel the Stillwater License Center. Shutting down a license center is a big deal, right? Where people can get a license. So we said to the construction manager, you've got 1 week. And on a Friday when the sheetrock was supposed to happen, the sheetrock folks decided it was too much snow. They weren't going to show up, and the construction managers made one call. You know, if you ever want to work with us again on any other of our $1 billion worth of projects, better be here by noon. And we got the project done. So there's that market pressure that they can bring that you can't bring as just the owner. So when I talk about bid flexibility, just 2 examples, and I did not work on this Minnetonka project. But you see there, they bid the project as a GC, and the bids came in $2.5 million over estimate. So when you receive a general contract bid, you're really limited on what you can do at that point. It's pretty much reject all the bids and go back to bid, but it's not like you can do something different to get the price down. So in this case, Minnetonka then rejected all the bids, hired a construction manager at risk, and did some value engineering, rebid the job, and bid it basically on a new budget and hit the new schedule after that. Closer to home with my experience, we had the county courthouse and law enforcement center down there. So you see the big 5-story courthouse and 30 plus different work scopes that I just described. And we opened up the bids and they all came in great except precast panels for the floors. And we're like, what happened? So if it was on a GC situation, we wouldn't even know that, what was high. In this situation, we knew, okay, these concrete panels are high. So the construction manager was able to do research, talk to the people that bid on it. And we found out that based on the size that we were bidding, they needed to make special forms. So we awarded all the other bids except that one, revised the plans and rebid that, and it came back in where we needed for estimate. So we had that flexibility when we got a bad bid. So what happened, and so we can get this thing back on budget versus just having one big number and, oh, now what do? Do we have to reject everything? Okay. So what were some concerns we had starting with the construction management agency? Because as I said, we were using general contractor. Some initial concerns was what's the staff accounting and legal workload that we're going to have. So once again, you know, highway project, you got one contract, that's all you have to pay. Now we're going to have 30 contracts. How are we going to handle that? And that really became a non-issue because the construction manager puts all those pay applications together, delivers the city accounting team a nice package. And really, just like tonight, you approved probably hundreds of claims. It's no different than just what's another 30 claims to put on there and pay. Construction managers tracking all that. So it really wasn't a big increase in workload for staff or legal for that matter. Relationship with the architect. Some architects see the construction manager as a maybe get in the way of the design. You know, Casey Stengel says getting good players is easy, but getting them to play nice is the hard part. Certainly that tone is set early on with the 3-legged stool, and as you bring people together on that. Obviously, you want the architect, I shouldn't say obviously, you want the architect to be challenged and the construction manager challenged, but in a collaborative way. And the owner certainly, we set that tone on that. So that really didn't become an issue. Partly, people now see that the architects that are out there and the construction managers, they know they've got to work together because this is the way things are being delivered. Change order management, you know, all the change orders are done by the owner contingency. So what happens if there's a design error? So that's always a little bit tricky one. So first off, I would tell you that you're not paying an architect to deliver perfect plans. If you were, you'd be paying 20% fee. So there's going to be change orders, but design errors, that's a bigger thing. That's really somebody made a mistake. And while we thought at one point that was going to be maybe an issue with using construction manager agency, it actually found out it was a value because we did have a project where a mechanical engineer made a design error and the construction manager was able to help us work through that and then actually get a credit back from the engineering firm to help pay for that design error. So that actually turned into a benefit. So moving on to construction manager at risk experience. And since I've retired, I've been helping Oakdale out. As you see there, you saw the picture at the beginning, the Oakdale Public Works facility is open. Police expansion in City Hall hopes to groundbreak here at the end of the month. And Matamita is in the process of selecting a construction manager at risk. I will say that construction manager at risk is not a new process, but it's relatively new in the fact that 2023 is when the legislature passed new legislation that defines how you use and select a construction manager. Before that, some cities' legal team says you really can't even use a construction manager at risk. And the ones that did use it really was just a wild west of how they used them. And so the legislature stepped in and passed legislation to say, fine, this is how you pick one, and this is how they need to be used. So what's the difference between the two and the benefits? I've seen all the benefits of the construction manager agency with a CMAR, plus there's other ones. So first it starts with you publicly advertise to select the construction manager at risk. That's the public process. Once you select them, as they work through the design, they then go out and pre-qualify contractors that can bid on the job. The city works with the construction manager at risk to define those criteria. So it's everything from how much experience do you want them to have. All the construction managers have different criteria for the city can consider. So once those contractors are pre-qualified, then the CMAR solicits bids from them. So it is bidding, but it's not public bidding like you would have an open bidding for a highway project on that. One of the things that we've seen with the pre-qualification is that, like I say, you can ask for people that have experience in building a certain building. Public works buildings, fire stations, they're specialized buildings. And doing the electrical work in a public works building with the compressors, the cranes, the lifts is different than wiring an apartment building. And so people that have experience in those public types buildings, that you can ask for that is what you're building. Another big one that's a big difference is construction manager at risk holds all the contracts. So construction manager agency, you'll award the contracts to those 30 plus firms, then you'll hold those contracts. Construction manager at risk, you agree to the award of that, but those contracts are assigned to the construction manager at risk and they hold those contracts. What that means is if there's any legal claims that come along or problems, it's the lawyers for that firm that deal with it. And I'll just, on the Oakdale project, we had a situation where I'll just say, thank goodness it was their legal team that had to deal with this issue and not the city's legal team. There's a cost of that I'll get to, but that's one of the huge differences of who holds those contracts. And then probably the most attractive thing to some elected officials is you get a guaranteed maximum price that after all the bids are taken, all the allowances are figured in, you'll sign an agreement with that construction manager at risk of this is the guaranteed maximum price for delivery, not including soft costs like the lifts and things that Dave would put into the building, but all the hard construction costs are a guaranteed price. A way around that is you can put those things into the bid. So you could actually build this furniture into the bid and reduce, and put more control on the construction manager at risk. But that's, once again, that's way down the line. The other question always comes up is, all right, so you've got a guaranteed maximum price of 30 million. What if the job only ends up costing 28 million? The way the AIA contract is written is that any balance left at the end of the project or contingency comes back to the city. So it's not like you're going to leave money on the table because it's not a, now would you receive $2 million in savings in a project? Probably not, but typically don't use all the contingency pot, and there's probably gonna be a project balance at the end on typical projects, so. The way the contract's written, anything less to deliver to the guaranteed maximum price, it comes back to you. Some concerns we had initially is the process and time to select one. As I said, the statute prescribes it. That really hasn't been an issue with the two cities I've worked with. The Montemita one, we started that process the 1st of April, and we'll actually this morning did interviews, and we'll have a contract, I'm sure, their first council meeting in June, so it can be relatively quick process that way. One that's kind of, I don't want to say it's hidden, but didn't really think, I didn't know until we got into it, is just about every construction manager at risk in the metro area is signatory with the carpenters, laborers, cement masons, and operators unions. So remember I said that they've got to hold the contracts. Well, because they're signatories to those unions, they can't hold contracts with non-union firms. So any work scope that involves cement, a laborer, or a carpenter, those firms have to be a union firm. And that's in the pre-qualifying criteria that goes out. Some attorneys say there's a way around that. The attorneys I'm working with, the two cities have said, no, this is the statute. You can't get around that. Is that a big deal or not? It just depends on some, every city is different on how they feel about union labor and even prevailing wages on that. And then another significant difference that we had concerns about is, so part of that guaranteed maximum price is the construction manager has a contingency and the owner has a contingency. So there's two contingency pots. So now a change order comes up, which pot does it come out of? And I was expecting to be going to have some real, rock'em sock'em meetings to figure that out. Some are pretty clear, right? Public Works Director decides, let's put carpet in this room, and it was just planned for concrete. Okay, that's an owner request. But now suddenly the walls are going up and you go, wow, it would have been nice to have a door cut into this precast to make it easier for staff to go through. Is that just a design issue, or where does that really fall? I'll just tell you, we've been able to work through all those issues by being collaborative. But also go back to what I said, is that if there's any money left at the end, it comes back to you. So you think about it, it doesn't really matter much which pot it comes out of, because at the end, if there's money in either pot, it's yours. So I did say there's some costs to consider. And the transparency fees. I'll just tell you my general contractor, and I'm not taking shots here at general contractors, just the way it is, but you won't know what their site services costs are or general conditions costs are. And what I mean by that is things as simple as 12 months of porta potties, the site superintendent on the job, those things that you got to have, the site fence running around the project. As mentioned already, you're not going to have a choice on who your project team is. There is a typical fee that's in their cost of 2%. And then there's also markups on change orders. They'll mark up subcontractor change orders of 5%. That's industry standard. And if they do any self-perform work, it's typically 10%. Construction manager agency, you'll see all the delivery costs. Any construction manager firm will give you probably more detail than you ever want on what things are costing. There is a CM fee, construction management fee. That's their profit and overhead. And that's something that you would get under the proposal. What's their fee going to be? I've seen, I mean, the PowerPoint shows 1.5 to 2, but I've seen in the last 6 months, 1.25 to 1.6% is in that range. So that's just a part of the hard construction cost. And then there's no markup on change orders. The CMAR is the same way with the CM fee. It's once again, typically I've seen lately in that 1.25 to 1.6, but then there's an additional 2% in round numbers. That's because they're holding the contracts, they have to insure and bond all those contracts. And that's what it typically is. And so that 2% is on every change order. So I go back to that carpet example, it's $1,000 to put carpet. There'll be another 2% on top of that to go to that. So a lot of information for you tonight. Certainly glad to take any questions. And I know I kind of flew it through it quick, but I do appreciate, listening to my experience and glad to help as a resident of Forest Lake.
Thanks, Don. Just a quick question. Can you go back to that last, those three different options on the cost? Is there, on any of these, specifically the general contractor part, is there a way to qualify these people to be bidders on this? Or do you have to publicly open it up to everyone? Or can you have certain standards and that way I mean, yes, you don't know who that person is, but you could, there's going to be 5 people that we vetted out and qualified to do such a job like this.
Mayor, I haven't done that, but I would believe you could look into that, to do that and put some criteria to the bid. Oh, sure, the other lawyer can give you some advice.
Yes, Your Honor, Counsel. So that's the best value alternative bidding. So we can do something like that under the bidding laws, and it's essentially creating an RFP process, and that would establish parameters beyond just the lowest price.
You'd have to take the lowest price based on if they all met those parameters.
So you're doing a scoring, and so you're going to be scoring based on a variety of factors. So let's say they need to do between 5 and 10 public works buildings before, or whatever your criteria is. And so you're going to have a score sheet, and then you're going to be able to tabulate those scores. And so then hypothetically, the highest score is your winner, or I guess depending upon how you would score that. That's basically the first step of the CMAR process, is that you would do an RFP for that CMAR, that contract manager at risk, where instead of looking at the lowest possible bid for them, right, you're looking at all of this different criteria. Well, you could take that same public bidding model and you could apply it hypothetically to a GC if they're willing to answer your RFP.
Yeah, Mayor, to that point, within the construction manager agency, we've done best value selection on certain work scopes. The biggest headaches are always earthwork, mechanical, and electrical. And so city didn't want to take just low bid on those. And so we did best value for those, as the attorney talked about. So we assigned points to cost, experience on projects, and references, and then scored those. And then and actually 2 of the 3 divisions I just mentioned, it wasn't the low bid that the city went with. It was the a middle bid, just because of what these firms could bring in, because those are always the 3 big risky ones that are expensive. So you could structure a GC, I'm sure, to do that best value.
The other question, which one was it that you were required to hire union only?
The at risk.
That's only for certain trades, not everything.
It's just these trades that are most of the CMARs are signatory to. It ends up being about half a dozen of the work scopes out of the 30 plus that you would have. But you can decide, even just if you, or even like prevailing wage, you can decide in the pre-qualifying criteria if you want to require prevailing wages or not require them. So.
Very supportive of unions. When I was involved in this building here, the one non-union shop that we did hire was Vinco, local electric company. 150 employees in the city here. That bid was $100,000 less, and I think they delivered a really nice project. So to omit possibly, especially local companies, to bid out this thing would be a little bit of a concern for me. Thoughts here?
Yeah, and in working with the construction manager, either method, you can certainly put in there that you want them to focus on local contractors, especially when they get out to hit the streets, to let people know, hey, we got a great project coming, and generate interest in bids. That's the other thing I didn't have on here, but we had 180 contractors interested in bidding on the most recent project, and I think we had 150 out of the 180 actually submit a bid. So these construction management firms, I mean, this is They literally just are on the phone and saying, hey, we got a project and we need you to bid on it. And that's part of that whole relationship piece that I talked about earlier, is they have relationships with plumbers, electricians, carpenters, carpets, and can really help you get good prices.
Just going to your next slide. Doesn't look like, correct me if I'm reading this wrong, but between any of these, I mean, are they all similarly priced, with maybe with the exception of the CMAR, who has that additional 2%? But I mean, every one of them is charging up to 2% for their role. Is that accurate?
Yeah, Councilmember, yes, that's accurate. Yeah. The only other significant difference, if is just the change orders on the GC. They've got a markup that traditional management agency wouldn't have. So, but that extra 2% on the insurance and bonds is the amount. So if you got a $40 million project, that's what, 800,000?
Yeah.
So that's private school math.
Thank you.
I shouldn't say that. My wife's on the school board.
Any other questions? Some that's related but not. It'll be interesting. When do you, so you just are interviewing people for the Matabidi project right now? And when will bids, when will those be due?
To start the project?
Yeah, to start the project.
So they just last fall, they did a space study, and then they're hired a different architect now to do the work, the plan. So they actually have just started the design work.
Oh, okay.
So best case scenario, they would bid it next spring. And yeah.
Do you think, so we've been told since the beginning to plan about a 4% increase each year that you push this off, or is that a realistic number, Don, that you're experiencing?
I was just talking to Dave earlier, the bidding right now is so hard to predict. Steel and concrete and precast are just absolutely, the steel vendors won't even keep their price for more than a week, because every day they're getting an increase, and they just got a letter saying $3 a pound. Wow, that doesn't sound like much. Well, that's $6,000 a ton, and it adds up pretty darn quick. And I know you've heard from the architect, the lead time for precast walls is really significant with data centers and other big projects out there. Unfortunately, trying to do something like concrete masonry units, it's the same price, so you really, there's no savings there. So inflation is a real issue, Mayor. But what is it? I mean, we all drive by Quick Trip every day, and what's the gas going to be, right? So, and that affects everything we do. So it's almost, somebody today told me it's almost like we're back in the COVID area. It's just so unpredictable on these big items. So.
Hey, thanks, Don. I appreciate the information. Thank you for your service as chair on the Parks Board as well. So we appreciate it.
Yeah. No, thank you for all what you do. And I know it's been a long, tough night already.
Yeah.
So the good news is, before I got up here, the Wild were winning. So.
We'll see you Friday.
Great. Next item, employee engagement opportunities. Ally.
Mr.
Oh, did I miss something? Yeah, that's right. We were going to do more on,
Talk
yes.
a bit more about some of the other direction that
Yes.
council had given at the April workshop. So I'm going to turn it over to Amanda for that.
Yes, thank you, Council. So one of the things that you directed staff to look at was possible creative or outside the box funding options for the Public Works facility. And one of them, I probably cheated, is on here is a city sales tax, because that is sort of an out of the box idea, maybe a little bit, and wanted to kind of talk a little bit about what the impact it would, what kind of impact that would be if there was a sales tax. So if there is no sales tax, then 100% of the cost of the building is borne by the residents, right? If there is a sales tax, then over 50% would be borne by people who are not residents. So that is literally a 50 cents on the dollar savings to the residents. So from a direction from the council of how do we save the taxpayers money, sales tax is the best way to save the residents who live here money on their property taxes and their sewer water fees. So unfortunately, we don't have control over that process right now. If it gets to the legislature, then the big thing is going to be making sure that we educate the community so they understand that while it seems like approving a tax maybe wouldn't be in their best interest, it is, and here is why. I can tell you that I've been in a few other cities where they have attempted to get sales tax passed, and sometimes it's very successful, and sometimes it is wildly unsuccessful. And the untrained observer's observation is definitely the lack of education is just hammering the education to the community to help them understand why this is in their best interest. Or in one city's case, they had 3 sales tax on one ballot, and I can tell you that you're not going to get excited about saying yes to a sales tax 3 times in a row. So also, things like that are not great plan. So that's the one kind of creative alternative funding option. The second one that the council asked about was possibly a lease option or a lease to own option. That was really interesting. I did some deep diving on that, and I spoke with people far more intelligent than myself in terms of understanding some of the creative public-private partnerships that have happened. There's an attorney in my office who came from the St. Paul Port Authority, and so he is very well versed in creative funding ideas. And so we spent a decent amount of time talking through how would this work? Could it work? Is it legal? Would it be legal? So number one, he has not seen this used before, so he's not familiar with this. I think we'd be in uncharted waters in terms of doing something like this. But as we walked through it, we do think that this could be legal. In other words, we can't find a law that prohibits us from doing this. So I want to talk about the mechanics of this. And I want to caveat what I'm about to say by saying I am not an attorney who represents private investors, and I won't pretend to understand that market. Before I was a city attorney, I was a developer's attorney, so I do have some understanding of the private sector, but not on something like this. So it's highly possible that you will get a phone call from a potential investor tomorrow that says she's completely wrong, and I might be. So I apologize in advance if that's the case. But how this would happen while following some of the restrictions that we have as the city is we would put out an RFP looking for an investment group. That is our public bidding process, right, in this capacity. And so we'd be looking for a private investment group who would want to partner with us on the public works facility. And it would be through that best value process versus the lowest bidder, because you would need to be able to have criteria. Investment group, great, but what sort of collateral do they have? What sort of experience did they have? You're going to want to be able to put them through some level of criteria to be able to select the right group. So that would be the first step. Then we would enter into a ground lease with them for the property. The investment group would then construct and own the public works facility. So they would do we wouldn't be worrying about any parts of the stool because it would be their stool. So we would have the lease, but they would be doing everything else. Obviously, what is important there is to make sure that we have very clear expectations around what we want for that public works facility. So practically speaking, even though it would be the investment firm's stool, we would need to make sure that we have some level, some type of seat at the table so we can oversee the building that we're going to be leasing from them. And then we would lease the building from the investment group. So here's where it gets a little bit tricky. And here's where I acknowledge my lack of understanding the other side of the table. We think from the way that we've run the math is it probably would not work to do a lease to own, because if you're doing a lease to own, they're not going to be able to cash flow from their side. And if they can't cash flow from their side, they're not going to want to do it. So the way that if I'm a private investor, I would structure this deal is that I would be taking out a loan I'm not going to use cash. I'm going to definitely need to leverage something to build the building. And so then I'm going to need our lease payment to pay back that loan plus make money. With interest rates what they are, with costs what they are, the only way that probably works is an interest-only loan with a balloon payment at some point, whether that's 10, 15, 20 is I don't even know if I've seen a 20-year balloon, but so it would be something where, let's say 15 years down the road, that's when they actually have to pay out the principal. So well, in that first 15 years, we would be paying those lease payments to them. They're making cash flow off of that, but they are not paying down the principal at all. And so in a lease to own structure where we would buy it for $1 or buy it for some nominal amount at the end of a lease run, that's probably not going to work on their side of the equation in this scenario. Now, that does not mean that an investment group could say, well, actually, we think we can make the numbers work. But as Eric Larson, the other attorney, and I ran through it and put both of our heads together on this, we don't see how they could make those numbers work. Does that, I see head noddings, but does that make sense where I got to the analysis that lease to own might not be a feasible option? Questions on that?
But that contemplates they would have to borrow that money.
Yes.
As opposed to investment group having that money and not loaning money for X. And maybe their ROI is maybe they only want 5%. Maybe that's I don't know. There's.
Yeah, right. That's assuming that they won't have that, 30 to 40 million that they want to put in as cash. And just fair, just knowing from previous experiences, I've never seen somebody put in cash like that. It's always been they finance it. So that's how that would play out. Okay, so let's talk about what we can sort of see as the pros and cons. So the pros are, we would only be responsible for the lease payments, right? We're not responsible for anything else. It removes any responsibility on us to construct the public works facility, and potentially it can save us money if all we're doing is making those lease payments. Now, one thing to consider is if we're just making the lease payments and we're not able to use it to own it, in the long run, 20 years from now, we've been making these lease payments, but we don't have anything necessarily to show for it. At the same time, the there's just a limited lifespan to the building. And so the value of it 20 years from now is dramatically less than it would be today. So potentially it would require a much, much smarter financial mind than mine to figure out where that break-even point is. But you see where I'm kind of going with that. The cons are that because we wouldn't own the building, we would have somewhat of a limited ability to control the process or be involved. So obviously we want a seat at the table, but it's not our building. So at the end of the day, the investment group is going to be able to have kind of final say on certain items. We would not, it seems obvious, but worth pointing out, we would not own the public works facility. I don't know if that is something that is highly problematic for the city or not. I'm not familiar with another city that does not own their public works building, their public works facility, but it's hard to know what this space looks like 20, 30 years from now, in terms of, is there a model where that makes more sense? So that's just something to think about. Obviously, there is the potential for conflict with this investment group because unlike a construction model, we're in an ongoing continuous relationship with them. And so if something were to sour, what does that look like? And then, as I mentioned, the lease payments are not going to go towards the actual purchase. Some other things just to think about. I don't know if there's a demand for this in the marketplace. I don't know if on the private sector, if there would be a lot of replies or interest in an RFP if we put one out. Of course, there's no model to follow on this, so we would be inventing it as we go. I would strongly recommend that we look for additional intelligent people, additional advisors that would be able to help the city make sure that we're making that you're making a wise choice. And if I'm involved, that I'm setting it up correctly for everybody. Is it important that the city owns the building? And then is this really a question that's more of a, if we don't get the sales tax, so in other words, let's say that 2 weeks from now, we know we got a yes on the sales tax. And then in November, the residents say, yes, does this go away? And that sales tax really kind of answers the money issue for us. Or is this still in play at that point in time? I say all of that to say, what I have provided for you tonight is a very high level introductory answer to the question, can you do this? And so the answer is, yes, I believe you can do this. But if that's something that you actually want to do, you're going to probably want to direct myself and or additional staff members to do additional research on what the mechanics of this look like. Do you have any questions on all of that?
Mayor, may I just add, I don't, Amanda didn't hit on it, but it is noted in her staff report that, were the city to go down this road, this is not something the city can bond for. So
Oh,
this
yes.
would be something that there'd be a levy impact for this. So you'd be using levy dollars to pay lease payments. And I think that that's a really important consideration for this council to look at. There's no bonding mechanism available. We cannot use local sales tax. Were that to be approved, we couldn't use that money realized through local sales tax proceeds to then pay lease payments. So there's a little bit more financial risk in looking at options like this.
Presumably though, that potentially the lease payment would be less than what our bond payment is per year.
I think maybe Ellie can speak to that a little bit.
I think without knowing how the investor would fund it, it's hard to answer. But if you're looking at it logically and they're having these payments, whether they go out for a loan themselves, or if they have it, they're going to want to see 5% a return on investment as a number you used. You have to think that's the $40 million that we would see to build the building, and then they want that 5%. So I think it would net to be pretty close to the same. But once we did get those proposals, we could do more hard math with it, but just back of the napkin math, we would look to see it net about the same. And then at the end, there wouldn't be anything to capitalize on the accounting books.
Yeah, I would guess that, I mean, having looked at a number of REITs myself for different clients, knowing what those yields are, the only reason why I think this could possibly make sense is if we were in a situation as a city where we couldn't get favorable terms going out for bonds, which isn't the case. So I appreciate the exercise, but I doubt that it's a viable option for what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, to the public, I mean, we really are trying to figure out a way to make this thing affordable to the residents, and this is just one exercise, so we'll appreciate the time on that, and or if you want to explore it more.
And then there was the third option that I'll turn back over to Jolene and Dave to talk about, which is potentially there's better phasing options for the actual construction. And that can be a creative way to save money. And I'll kick it right back over to you for that one.
Yeah, and Dave, maybe I'll let you speak to this, but and I don't know if phasing is the appropriate term. I've been telling Dave this. I don't know if that's the right word. But we've talked with Wold on Friday a little bit about being a little more creative with this project to make sure that this is a good investment for this community. So Dave, do you want to just talk a little bit about Wold's perspective?
Yeah, we kind of really went all the way back to the space needs, and when it was decided kind of they're approved or moved on with that, we were going to go with that 20-year build and then kind of get the pricing off of that, and kind of just picked his brain out of, okay, so what if you were going to go all the way back to the current needs bid and then either just built that and then plan your 20-year again in your CIP, or bid out the project as your base bid, the current needs, and then, has alternates of those expansions built inside that. He said, yes, you could do that. You could find a couple, tell me if I'm wrong, but I mean, really what he said is, yes, you could do that, kind of like they showed in the spaces. You might save 2 or 3 million here, that 10-year plan, and in 10 years, it's going to cost you flat. Tough part is when you build that even current needs, you're putting all in electrical, you're putting all the HVAC in, you're putting all the expensive stuff, your site codes, all that. So to go from a current needs down, build a current needs versus the 20-year, you're saving on size, and that's mostly the cheapest part of it. It's panel, it's the farm storage or your cold storage. Oh, could go all the way back. You're not seeing. Honestly, right? I'd say, we can find this $25 million to $30 million building. Easy. Best option is best value engineering once you get a construction manager. making big decisions of what you wanna put in that building. Could do that as a base bid and see where bids come in and, you know, say you're not gonna spend more than 35 million, well, you. So, well, there's some wiggle room. I don't think there's just that big massive cost savings. And then if you don't, you pay for it on the back end too. That was a discussion I think we had too, is how far down the road do you want to go if sales taxes that comes to fruition, right? Is that what this city wants to build, that 20-year building? So just done with it, but maximize that space, not even maximize that, or does the city still want to look at finding cheaper options with the sales tax model? So I think something we can still explore going forward, but trying to find some different phase or some different project is a seller than maybe redoing.
Okay. Thoughts on?
No, we talked about before that we didn't want to build it at a certain stage and then have to come back in 3 to 5 years and say, we undercut it so bad, here we are, we're gonna have to ask for more money or another budget of some sort to try to get us up to a standard of working order. I know we don't want to go down that road either.
Yeah, and we took that tour of Hugo too, and I don't want to use Hugo's up, but I mean, they're fighting that right now, whereas if they would have just built the expansion the first time through, ready parking stuff in their center aisles, and that's a tough one to come back to the public and say, yeah, we tried to save money and build the current one, and now we're full. Not saying that will happen or won't happen. It's just that's trying to get the cheapest, smallest square footage. And I think everybody in the room wants to try to get a building built and figure out how to do it the best way with the best dollars. And answer is probably everybody's hoping we make the right decision no matter what decision we make too. So it's tough on all of us. So, it's Elf and all of you and Julian all trying to figure out how we can make this work, because it's
Yeah, I think if the sales tax thing doesn't become an option, I don't know if we'll have any other choice, to be honest with you, just with the dollars. So. Okay, is that thing on that?
I guess just to kind of wrap up this item, Mr. Mayor, is there anything right now that council would like to give more direction on information for staff to gather and present, down the road? We are still kind of waiting on the local sales tax, so that we know that's kind of the big factor here. But are you interested in looking at perhaps consultant options? Do you want to wait to make those decisions until we know going with the local sales tax, or would you like us to start gathering information about different, if we were to engage a consultant such as Dunn, not necessarily Dunn, but to go down that path and see what those options would look like?
You're talking about as far as evaluating the CMA?
Correct.
I guess personally, I would rather wait to see what the legislature does. Let's get that behind us. We'll feel like we've got past that hurdle. And then, engaging that consultant would be the next obvious step, in my opinion.
Go down a different road. Can you just maybe update the council on our or whatever we're planning on doing type of thing with spreading our word of what we want to do here?
No, absolutely. So really related to this, we've engaged Goff Public. They are finalizing our communications plan, and we expect to see that in the next few days here. And at that time, we are going to engage our subcommittee of the council, which is Councilmember Erickson and Mayor Roberts, to go in depth on that communications plan and just start rolling information out. That's going to include a website, a lot of different public engagement opportunities, a lot of just sharing information about what the current situation of our public works location is, what the needs are of the staff, what the challenges are with the various aging that staff has to do with equipment being stored in various locations. But that will be coming to the subcommittee hopefully next week. A lot more information out to the community about what the needs are for this public works facility.
We'll also be meeting with the steering committee this coming Friday. Last time we met was way before in the beginning of April, so a lot of updates to the steering committee as well, and see if we get any feedback from that group as well with comments or questions or stuff they would like to have us look into as well.
So we're making some forward progress, which is good news, but got those open-ended questions related to local tax that we're all kind of holding our breath to find the answer.
If staff has the bandwidth to at least explore that cost of, an advisor, I would be open to that. I don't think that could hurt. I also think that where we're at 6 months from now with a city administrator might factor into that decision, but it would be nice to have.
Absolutely.
Already has it, but. Okay, are we done with that?
Yep, great, thank you.
Great. Now, employee engagement opportunities, Ellie.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. At a previous department head meeting, we started talking about ways that we could better intermingle as an entire city. I don't see public works staff very often with them at their own building. Police come and go with their having to be on the road. And one of the very few times that, since I've been here, that I've gotten to have those major group events was at our end of the year party or our holiday party or at the end of the year when we all got together. So staff was thinking of ways, how can we continue to foster that? And so within our department head meeting, we came together as a group and we wanted to recommend to the council an implementation of a quarterly lunch and learn. And so within government funding, there are very strict rules on what we can use this funding for. And the big thing we go back to is public purpose. And so the thought process would be that we would seek council's approval tonight to implement a quarterly learning program, which would take place via the lunch hour here at City Hall, and each department would take a quarter. So Public Works would have it one quarter, administration would have it the next, then police would have it. And they would be responsible for planning the meal and also planning a 5 to 10 slide deck to talk about what their major initiatives are within their department, what are challenges they're seeing, and other things that they're doing on a daily basis that would affect the rest of the staff that we wouldn't really get to see or actually be aware of unless we had those little conversations. And so within 2026, we would look to do a Q3 and a Q4 activity. However, with this, it is not something that has its own budget line for the 26 budget. Each department prior to bringing this to council was responsible with identifying funding that they could then bring to, whether it's they're not going to do this or they're not going to do this, or hey, we have a surplus here within the 26 budget that we could then use to fund these lunches. And so within 2026, this would have no impact on the budget, so no impact on the levy, and there wouldn't be any risk to go over. Within the 2027 budget, if we do find these next 2 quarters to be successful, we would have a separate line item labeled employee engagement, and we would talk about, here's what we're planning to do in 27. So then we are covering our bases for a public purpose. We are seeking our approval, and then we are making it a learning opportunity for staff. And so are there any questions from the council? If not, I would seek a recommendation for approval of quarterly employee engagement lunches.
Sounds like a great idea. I wonder if maybe after 2 quarters or a certain time, we could make that so it's also more public facing so that the public can hear maybe what the challenges are of each department, and not challenges, but good things happening, whether that's through a council or a chamber type event or something just more public, as opposed to in-house, which is great. I just think that if department heads are gonna take that time to present something, it'd be nice for the public to be a part of that or hear some of that as well.
Yeah, I think we could look to do that, or even at it, like after the end of the quarter, we could throw it in a council meeting and the department could go over their slide deck, because I think it's important to know what everyone's doing.
I'd be open to that.
Okay, does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, staff should proceed with the implementation of the quarterly employee engagement and cross-department learning program in 2026 as funded within the approved budget.
I'll second.
Motion a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Right, 8E, Met Council Land Use Advisory Committee hearing.
That's mine. Thank you. So I know that Abby brought this before you 2 weeks ago. And we had a stipulation for your consideration where we were dismissing the first two objections that we had to the system statement. So since that time, the attorney for LUAC and the Met Council and myself have had a few more conversations. And to be fair, we had started these conversations before the previous stipulation, but then I wasn't real clear where they were going. I have received clarity on those conversations this last week, specifically that the appeal hearing that we have scheduled for May 21st, that what we would like to present is the issues that we have with how they calculate the density. So if we have to have 3.5 units per acre, a minimum of 3.5 units per acre, how do you get to 3.5 units? How do you determine what acres are buildable, what land is not buildable? That's the issue that we want to talk to LUAC about, because as the Land Use Advisory Committee, they are made up of a lot of mayors and council members from, sorry, I use my hands way too much. From other municipalities. And so we know that they, we're not entirely sure that they understand how the Met Council staff is actually doing the math. Well, it was brought to our attention last week that the attorney for LUAC, for the Met Council, would be objecting to us bringing that information in because that's not technically part of our system statement. Our system statement is that we have to have 3.5 to 6 units per acre. It's not about the underlying math. And that the structure of the appeal hearing would be done in a court style, which we understood, where it would be, direct examination, opening statement, closing statement, not a little bit more informal where you would think of kind of like the appeal tonight, where people can sort of present what they want to present. So based on that conversation with Attorney Erickson, the attorney for Met Council, she proposed that, but if you're willing to drop the final objection to your system statement, then you can have your entire hour and you can do whatever presentation you would like to LUAC with no interruption by her and no objection to the information that we're presenting. So Abby and I talked last week and we both felt like that was probably a deal worth taking because we want to be able to present without interruption, and we would like LUAC to be able to understand the actual issues that we're having with the math. And so that is what is in your packet tonight, is the proposed stipulation that would remove this as an appeal hearing and replace it as an hour-long presentation by the city. In addition, we would ask that the mayor still attend, because we do think that by having the mayor there and being part of the presentation, you'll be able to speak to your peers, right? They are additional electeds that I think will understand what you're saying in a way that's different than Abby and I potentially sounding, as Abby said it, like whiny staff. So we think that potentially by having a couple different voices there, that would be beneficial. And since it's our hour to do with whatever we would like with, we think that approach would be in the city's best interest ultimately. So for your consideration tonight is a new stipulation that would withdraw our remaining objection to the 2050 system statement in exchange for a 1-hour informational presentation by the city to LUAC on May 21st. Comments or else a motion?
All right, I'll make a motion to adopt the stipulation of settlement, withdrawing the remaining objection to the city's 2050 system statement in exchange for a 1-hour informational presentation by the city to LUAC on May 21, 2026.
I'll second.
Give motion a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Right, discussion items, just want to check in and make sure everyone's okay moving forward. These last two things, I don't know if, I mean, it's been a late night, but is everyone okay? I don't know how long these two items will be, but if council's willing to move forward, we'll go. Okay, all right,
I would suggest we push through.
okay,
I think these next two items can be relatively quick.
okay, great. Next, first item, local sales tax, public engagement.
Good evening, and I'm going to make this really quick as I think the message has been reiterated, I think 6 times tonight, that local sales tax has not been moved all the way through the House side yet. 2 weeks ago, I did send an email noting that it did make it into the Senate omnibus, which is exciting. The House committee has until, I believe it's this Sunday, so the 17th to finalize things. I reached out to Jolene this morning. As the last time I looked, they do not have another meeting scheduled for this week. And so it is a priority for everybody to meet this week to get funding for HCMC. So I do believe that there will be something coming out, whether they have enough information to put a tax bill together already without that additional meeting. More to come. I will keep the council updated on that via emails as information does come out. But within your packet, I also attached the start of our educational series that we will look to push out to residents. I have received feedback from numerous council members based off of what was provided. If you do have any additional feedback, please let me know. Our goal will be, once we do have that yay or nay from the legislator, to start pushing this out immediately. So it will start to be the face of, here's what sales tax looks like, here's your basic education, and it will go alongside the presentation that was given to the council the other day, really focusing on, hey, here's what sales tax would look like if we don't have sales tax. Here's what that cost implication will look like. So that is just that. If you do have any other updates or modifications you'd like me to make, just let me know.
Thoughts right now? No? Thank you on that. Chapter 50, collection of garbage and waste materials, Abby.
Yeah, so included in your packet was a staff memo just kind of introducing some of the challenges the city has had with the current Chapter 50, the collection of garbage and waste. I'll say this originated in my office with Dan Pearson, our code enforcement officer, who's running into some challenges with finding code sections to help support some of the public nuisance, public health nuisance issues. Kind of tying back into Chapter 50 of not defining things like a dumpster, or I think even the word receptacle or refuse is not in there, refuse container. And so staff wanted to bring this to you to kind of say, hey, are you okay if we kind of move forward to plug in a little bit more clarity in here, so code enforcement has a little bit better grounds for doing some enforcement. Just for example, the last few weeks, he's been dealing with a landowner who has a construction dumpster on their property, and that construction dumpster is full of household trash. It's not fly tight. It doesn't maybe meet the definition of residential properties that have trash service, but there's not really great ties there. And so I think one of the ways that we just want to kind of clean that up some, so he's got a little bit better grounds for doing some code enforcement action and issuing citations. That's the first thing. As I was talking with Jolene about this, she said, oh, hey, Amanda and I have been working on, legal counsel and I have been working on some stuff on Chapter 50 related to apartment complexes and HOAs, and how there is just a little bit of lack of clarity in terms of what is really exempted from Chapter 50. So essentially the code says, if you're residential, you have to have service, but it doesn't necessarily say what happens if you're in a neighborhood that has communal trash bins, or what happens in your neighborhood and does everybody have to have their own? And so I think that's some of the ways that Jolene and Amanda are seeking some clarity as well. So I think the idea tonight is just kind of gauge your feedback and us moving forward with working a little bit on Chapter 50, probably bringing you back a draft ordinance amendment for your discussion in maybe even a couple weeks if the council is favorable to us working on this. See lots of heads nodding.
So I would be in favor. A lot of this, I think, is coming from, we've had situations here where people, residents are complaining about their neighbors that are having trash all over, and we just don't have anything to do to stop that. This isn't another, trying to put another layer of government or oversee things. It just is genuine complaints that residents have where their neighbors are having these, to your point, what you just said, and so I would support some changes on that for sure.
Yeah, so you be bringing like a marked up section? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even just for example, like the bagsters, everybody's either used them or seen them. We don't have an ordinance for them. So we see them sitting on the side of the property, and we can, find a few code sections where it's like, oh, you've got unsheltered storage or something. Really what we want is some regulations, like people should be able to we should allow them within our community within reasonable limits. We had a complaint over the last week, I think it was one that surfaced over the winter, right? Snow had melted and now it's been sitting there. Well, now it's dilapidated, and these are the things that Dan would really like to try to stop from becoming nuisances earlier.
Yeah, thought on that for sure. All right, we'll go to staff updates. Ellie.
Next Monday at our workshop, we will be doing a intro to the 2027 budget. That's all I have.
Right.
Mayor, City Council, I'll just open it up for questions.
Amanda, anything this evening?
No updates.
No updates.
Dave? So.
I just have two updates. Last week, I have a vest on. It's really hot for me for the last 3.5 hours, Dave. Last week, we sent 4 through bike patrol training, so we have a total of about 8 or 10. As soon as the temperature warms up a little bit, you'll see a lot more of our officers out on our e-bikes. That'll be a good community event, and it's also easier for them to get through town as we start getting into the summer season. And as well as this Sunday, the 17th, we will have our first annual Cops and Car Show held out at Running Aces. That'll be from Sunday from 11 to 2 p.m. We had to move it to a different location because of the response that we received on how large it's going to be. So it should be a pretty good event where we can get in touch with the community and hopefully do a little bit of fundraisers for our Relief Association.
Thank you. Amanda, anything else? Jolene?
No updates.
No updates for me.
No updates.
None tonight.
Sorry, I couldn't throw a no hitter here. Just remind everybody, Wednesday's planning commission meeting at 6 o'clock.
I have no updates other than, tonight was a tough night. It was a decision to make, and understand that Planning Commission might be questioning their role, but we just clearly appreciate all their feedback, guidance, recommendations on this. Getting into the weeds on a lot of these issues for Planning Commission is a lot of work, and we just appreciate that work. So if nothing else, we'll make a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, motion second, further discussion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?